meeting is called to order. This is a meeting of the Southfield Board of Education for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a community meeting. There are 2 opportunities for public participation during the meeting, and comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. The board will listen to comments but may not respond during the meeting. If you wish to address the board, please submit a comment card immediately. All right, let's stand, if it's your pleasure, for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Poole, would you kindly guide us?
Yes, I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My name is Yolanda Charles, Board President.
Gerald B. Joyce, Vice President of the Board.
Good evening. I'm Leslie Love Smith, Board Secretary.
Good evening, Charles Hicks, Board Treasurer.
Mike Poole, Board Trustee.
Good evening, Talisha Rice, Board Trustee.
Sharonda Chiango, Student Representative.
Tyshawn Price, Student Representative.
India Pfizer, Student Representative.
To my left,
Dr. Jennifer Martin Green, Superintendent.
Laura Norris, Executive Assistant to the Board of Education.
Solon Phillips, Director of Social and Labor Affairs.
and we also have M1 Studios with technical assistance provided with Mike Madigan, Jeff Wolcott, Marlita Gamble, and recording minutes is Ms. Laura Norris. I did want to mention that Trustee Robinson was unable to join us tonight due to an unexpected passing of a family member. So that takes us right into board matters, folks. And I'd like to obviously open it up to the floor, but I just would like to take a moment, since today does mark the 17th anniversary of the September 11th tragedy, and ask that we take just a moment of silence in remembrance of the fallen heroes and their loved ones. Thank you. President Obama said that even in the smallest act of service, the simplest act of kindness is a way to honor those we lost, a way to reclaim that spirit of unity that followed 9/11. So just wanted to make sure to pause for a moment for that. It's open to the floor for the board members. Any board matters if you have. Mr. Hicks.
Well, first, I would like to welcome back all of the students, because the students are, 1, our customer, and 2, they're our product that we build and we produce to be enriched and take over for us. I'd like to also welcome back to the teachers and let them know that we appreciate you all, as well as the administrators, as well as the community. We've had a lot of change since we last met as a body before you all. I believe that we've made some positive changes. I believe that some of the changes that were implemented have been well received by the administrators and teachers. I would like to officially welcome Dr. Green as our new superintendent, and she's been well received by the district and has made a lot of positive changes, and we look forward to continued change and improvement.
Ms. Trustee Smith.
Yes. I echo some of the same sentiments regarding the welcome back. I've already shared it before, and I'll share it again in our official kickoff meeting for the school year, that the welcome back event for the district was so delightful, so pleasing. I really enjoyed just all of the handshakes, all of the smiles, all of the hugs, the excitement from the staff, and I really do hope that in the weeks passing since the welcome back, that same momentum has continued. I trust that it has. I welcome back all of the families, all of our students, of course, and I'm really just looking forward to an amazing, amazing year. I think that we are the right team right now to continue the work that has already been put forth, and I am really looking forward to seeing what's going to come throughout the rest of this year. Also, I was contacted by the National Congress of Black Women. If any of you are familiar with the mock elections that are held or that have been held in the district since 2008, they will be held again for our students. This is a wonderful voter education opportunity, and This year, there is a built-in curriculum for our students and working with our teachers. And so just briefly, I was asked to share a reminder that the mock elections will take place on October 30th. And for any principals that are in the audience, if you are looking to sign your school up to participate, please do reach out to Diana Pegler at 248-763-9114. You can also get in contact with the board office for additional information if you need to get in contact with her. But again, I'm looking forward to that. And if you are willing to volunteer, you can also reach out to the board office regarding that. That's the mock elections, again, held on October 30th from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay. I too echo a lot of the same sentiments. Want to welcome back everyone, the parents, the students, administration, as well as my fellow board members, although we don't take a break during the summer. And actually would like to thank Dr. Green because we had an awesome board retreat in the month of August with a number of different administrators to help start the school year off with data, I'll say. But one of the other things I would like to do is thank or give a shout out to the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Task Force. It's a nonprofit organization that was formed in 1985, and they recently took about at least 25 students from Southfield Public Schools on what they call the Freedom Ride for 2018. These students took a trip really across the lower region of the country, where they went to Memphis, Tennessee, Atlanta, Georgia. I think the trip was cut short. They wanted to go to Washington, D.C. didn't get a chance to, but they also went to Louisville and had an opportunity to go to a number of monumental sites. The Civil Rights Museum. They actually got to see the birthplace of Dr. Martin Luther King, the Lorraine Hotel, a number of different memorable events. They talked about so many different things. Some of the children were received a interview to ask them how did they like the experience, how did they like the interaction between the adults and the students, what was the exposure like. I think the biggest feedback that I received was it was not just an extended learning opportunity where most people think of field trips. It was a learning experience. And so I just really want to thank the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Task Force. Some of you know some of the changes with history for Michigan Department of Education. Being able to have that exposure to those opportunities is paramount for our students. And so again, I do want to give a shout out and thank you to them.
Thank you. Any other trustees for matter? Yes.
Can we welcome the,
Sure.
we have 3 new student representatives that we'd like to introduce to you all.
Oh, well, hello everyone. My name is India Pfizer. I am currently in the 12th grade.
What school?
Oh, I'm at Southfield Arts and Technology.
And I'm Tyshawn Price. I am a student representative for Southfield High School for the Arts and Technology as well. I am in 12th grade.
I am Sharana Chiangong, and I am in 12th grade at University High School Academy.
Thank you. And just a little point of privilege, the Jolia family, I'll leave it like that before I do some terrible things. Just really, really pleased to see yet another member of the family, and I believe there's a third out there, so the bar said hi, young lady. All right. Yeah, parents, if you're here with your senior, sometimes you drive yourselves, but parents of those seniors, please stand so you can be recognized. Very good, thank you. This takes us right into public participation. If you wish to address the board regarding a school-related issue that has not yet been resolved by school administration, please submit a comment card immediately. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. As a matter of fairness, speakers with complaints against individuals are asked not to mention persons by name. Complaints concerning employees pursuant to Board Policy 9130 should be brought to the attention of the school principal or other administrators before coming to the Board of Education. Your cooperation is appreciated. We have Ms. Cheryl Timms, who will have come to the podium first as you make your way. Next will be Ms. Patrice Taylor after Ms. Timms, and then Ms. Kathy Slate in that order.
Good evening, President Smith-Charles.
Good evening.
The school board and Superintendent Green. I am Cheryl Timms. I am representing the Southfield Lathrop Village Optimist Club, and I wanted to make sure that we are on your agenda for this school year for both our oratorical and our essay contests. Some of you know that the oratorical contest has extended to a world championship over the past 3 years, and that scholarship is worth up to $22,500. The essay contest is still at the highest level, at the district level, but that is still a $2,500 scholarship. So I wanted to come early in the school year so that you would all have this on your hearts and on your calendars. The theme for the essay contest this year is when all the world's problems are solved, is optimism still necessary? For our oratorical contest this year, the theme is there a line between optimism and reality? The essay contest applications will be due on February 5th, along with the essays themselves. The recognition event, be it breakfast or evening, will be on February 26th. For the oratorical contest, the copy of the speech and the applications are due on March 5th. And the combined, because there is no longer a gender-specific contest, so it is non-gender combined contest, it will be held on March 19th. Additional information will be provided regarding who our point of contact is going to be within the district, where essays, speeches, and applications will be turned in. Those are details that we're working on, but I wanted to make sure that I was here tonight to make sure we're on your calendar for 2019. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I have handouts. Where would you like me to leave them?
If you feel like passing them around, or you could just leave them right here with Ms. Norris.
Okay, I can do that. Someone hand was up?
I had a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, okay.
Did you mention the students that are eligible? Is it only high school students?
Oh, no, there is no minimum age.
Oh.
It's just the rules are a little different only because some of the points changed, but the rules for the contest, and I brought in the packet applications for both essay and oratorical, as well as anything that changed this year, because some people have done it over the years, and there are a couple of things that are a little different. But there is no minimum age. The maximum age is that you could not have exceeded your 18th birthday on October 1st of this year, being 2018. That's it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes. Are there electronic copies or information related to the contest?
Absolutely. I brought you hard copies tonight.
Okay.
I brought 25.
Okay.
But everything's online, and if I have a person that you'd like me to directly, forward stuff to so it can be distributed throughout the district, I can do that tomorrow.
Thank you very much. We do.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Timms, that would be Mrs. Norris that you'll be giving that information to.
Oh, okay.
All that information.
I'll get your contact information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Patrice Taylor, Southfield, Michigan, 48033. I got to do this really fast. Got a couple things. The first thing, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I just want to state that my first concern is that I've spoken with the principal at Southfield A&T, and within that conversation, I made sure to include some things, and these are the issues that were presented. Substitute teacher who was in charge of watching the OTEC students was witnessed falling asleep. Classes still without a permanent teacher, math and culinary arts, especially frustrating for senior parents. Gate to the student parking lot was locked yesterday morning, which caused unsafe driving on 10 Mile. OTEC students being displaced and no clear plan for them the first week of school. Teachers didn't, and some still, have yet to request the summer packets. What type of credit is given for them? Syllabus is not provided to some students, and it's week 3. The dress code policy continues to not be addressed. A large portion of students continue to not dress according to the policy, which is causing discord for those who are. These are parent concerns, not mine alone. And my concern was the response. The response was stoic, politically correct, and fluff. So, of course, I CC'd Dr. Green, and I also thanked the principal for her response. My next is transportation. My son was left early in the morning. I was right there. Now, my concern is that I remember Trustee Joyce stating that whenever there should always be someone to answer the phone. I called 10 times. I counted. Not one time did anyone answer.
Kathy Slade, 17539 Westland Avenue, Southfield, Michigan, 48075. I have many concerns, but I'm just going to go down the line. My first one was about the salaries that I asked why weren't they on the personnel report, because they are on many other school districts, especially for the new hires. I've never received an answer or a response to that, so I'd like to have a response to why is that not on there even today with the new one. There's no salaries on there. My second concern is I noticed that you all are paying for fees for the annual fees for IB over at Thompson. And according to the PYP program, it says the school makes provisions for students to learn a language in addition to the language of instruction, at least from the age of 7. All we have is Rosetta Stone. That's not adequate. The equipment is not working. Teachers have difficult time to fit that into the time of the day, and it's just not adequate. And then we don't have a Spanish teacher for middle school at all. And then for music, for PYP, PYP is a K through 5. We haven't had music in over a year. And now we're having to scramble to figure out what we're gonna do on Fridays for that. So, and I don't think too many people want to take a .2 position. I'm just going to be honest with you. So you all need to work something out. If we're supposed to be all schools of excellence, then all schools need to make sure that we have art, gym, and physical education. My next concern, of course, being the science teachers, those science kits that we never ordered. Instead of spending all that money on that online, you all should have been buying kits. I spent over $300 last year of my own money to make sure that the children had experiences in NGSS, which is the next generation standards for science. And many of the things would have been in those kits had they been purchased. The buses, I was actually excited about the buses this year. They were on time. But we do have buses with 2 routes on one bus, and the buses are late. And they're also late coming and late going. So that's a concern. And then MAP. Who's the contact person? Who is going to be in charge of that? We looked at our list. We have old kids on there and new kids on there, and well, for us, we test next week, and some people have already tested. Who do we call? Who do we contact? We don't know who that person is. I see we hiring a director of finance. Need to know the role of that person and why can't the current person that was, or the previous person that was doing it, why can't she do it? Seems like a dual role to me for one person can do. And then of course our lovely hot days. And I do appreciate the fact that we actually close schools on the very hot days. But I know over at Thompson, I really wish you all would consider putting screens in the windows, because even though we can open them, we have bees coming in, we have bugs coming in, nice little furry critters, Bambi's friends are coming in. So if we had a screen, it would have made it a little bit easier. And I was just wondering if next time we do our calendar, because I know it's up, we have a calendar for next year. If you look at Warren Consolidated Schools, they start after Labor Day and they end on the 13th, and they have all their breaks, and they only have 5 half days. So I'm just saying, just another, when we are into that calendar role, you can actually look at that. And then the last thing, we have several positions over at Thompson that are still open. Many of you are.
Slate. I was so entranced by what you were saying, and the timer had gone off. We definitely want to hear your comments. I just want to make sure.
Oh, this is my last point.
Okay.
Yeah, my concern is we were told that we have a person starting on the 28th, but you all are voting on that person tonight. And this has been a vacancy since the beginning of the year with various teachers in there. And we know the enrollment in Thompson, we need to keep it up. And parents are they're getting very frustrated with that. So I guess my question would be, if somebody is started on the 28th, why are you all voting on them tonight? Thank you.
Thank you. I have 2 more blue cards and a very pertinent comment that I just want to lift into this moment. Members of the Board of Education and the district administration value your comments, and your concerns have been duly recorded. To ensure that an accurate response is provided, the appropriate district staff will thoroughly investigate your issue and will contact you within 7 to 10 business days. If your concern is an emergency and requires more immediate attention, please contact the board office at 248-746-4366, and your support and participation are greatly appreciated. Ms. Tamika Miller is next. Your name and address for the record, please, and then Ms. Kelly Richardson, and that will take us into the next segment on our agenda.
Good evening. Tamika Miller, 16220 Templar Circle, 48075. So once again, I'm coming to the board to complain about the lack of teachers for my children. This is my 4th year experiencing no core teachers. This year, it's a 9th grade math teacher at ANC. I think it's it's unacceptable, because the first day of school comes just like Christmas. We know when it's coming, so you have to prepare for it. And you know, I just think you guys have done a horrible job with recruiting. I'm not sure who's in charge of recruiting, but we should have a good pool of candidates always. This is like, what, the 3rd week of school? It's just ridiculous. My other daughter doesn't have a culinary arts teacher. She's a senior. She needs like this credit to graduate. So there's really no excuse for that. My other point are the buses to OTEC. My daughter goes to OTEC AM, and she's here very early every day. I mean, like at 7 o'clock or before, and they're always late to OTEC. I'm not really sure why, but I definitely need some answers to that, because again, she's behind when she gets over to OTEC, but it's not because of her not being timely. So we need to correct that. Piggybacking off of, I believe, Mrs. Taylor's comment about the displaced students for OTEC. Again, 2nd year in, we should know that OTEC starts a week after we start, so we need to know where these kids should go. It wasn't until I called to complain to find out that, oh, well, we'll just send them to the Warrior Den. I get over there one day, the attendant, she was sleeping. I didn't hear this, but I saw it. The attendant was an employee of the district or whoever we hire. She was sleeping. Her feet were kicked up in a chair, and she was sleeping. It's unacceptable. We have to do better. And once again, you know, I said that I would give the district another chance, but I am running out of chances. It's just not worth it for my children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Is that the end of our other participation?
Good evening. I will be very quick. I'll go ahead and read my note here. First, I would like to say thank you. Thank you to the school board.
Before you get started, we want to make sure we know who you are and be able to respond to you.
Kelly Richardson, 48076.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, I wanted to say thank you to the school board for bringing us Dr. Green. I recently had an issue that was important to me. I felt that after Dr. Green learned of the details, a resolution was implemented quickly, which for me speaks volumes because time is generally not on our side. I attended Bernie Middle School and also a graduate from Southfield Lathrop. Fast forward, I have 2 children in the district, and I am proud to call Dr. Green my superintendent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that definitely concludes it, but if your resolution has not been addressed in that manner, I do want to reiterate that phone number just in case. It's 248-746-4366. And again, the goal is that if it's something pressing like that, please don't wait for the 7 to 10 days. Certainly reach out to the board office, and we want to jump on it as quickly as possible, as best we can.
Board President?
Yes.
If we have questions in regards to some of the public participation, instead of waiting for the good of the order, can we inquire now?
What's the pleasure, board members? I think a couple of them will come up in the presentation from Plant Moran in terms of the business office space, finance office. Any other than that, sure, because I would hate to get ahead of the report.
Yep.
Oh, go ahead.
So I'd just like to follow up to understand, I'm pretty sure our OTEC situation, the transportation is there. Our students are off to OTEC on a regular basis.
Yes, they are off on a regular basis. I do understand that there was difficulty the first week, given the time delay. There should have been a better plan in place. I make no excuses for that. The building level leadership and I will work together moving forward to ensure that our students are in position. As it pertains to the adult that was in the room, it is my understanding that that individual was a substitute teacher that has now been displaced from serving our students moving forward.
One thing, Board President, I'll just bring up, and maybe it doesn't have to be now, maybe for our study session, but the report for the substitutes in the schools and the duration that the substitutes are in those positions.
I do have that noted to bring forward at the September 25th study session.
Okay. And I'll look at the personnel action report in terms of the number of staff that we have out. Looking to ensure that we have those filled, or if not, have interviewed or submitted an offer to those students. The summer packets, consistency there. Prior to you joining as a superintendent, Dr. Green, we had made a requirement for the summer packets to be a requirement, just as it is. In years past, some of the students have turned it in, some of the students have not turned it in. And this year we said, yes, it would be a requirement and it should be a part of your grade. So I just ask if we don't have consistency there across the schools, for us maybe to reiterate or communicate back to our teacher administration in regards to that requirement. I will leave the other ones. I think we'll get to transportation and some of the other matters in the later part of the meeting.
Yes, the one thing that I wanted to know, Board President, if you could look into legal regarding the personnel report. The comments that were made have been made several times, and I just want to make sure that we're in alignment with what are we required to, what are we, within our legal realms to provide publicly.
Yes, you were on the same wavelength as me on that one. Acknowledging that it has been requested a few different times, and there is rationale. I just want to make sure it's
absolutely,
the correct rationale. And then the other thing that I thought was pertinent and relevant and a low piece of hanging fruit which is who to contact in terms of math I already know who you're going to say, but I defer to the superintendent on that, if we can make sure folks know who to reach out to in that
Yes,
capacity.
any issue regarding curriculum or academic materials, please reach out to the Chief Academic Officer, who is new to our district. So I would like to take this moment, if I may, to introduce Mr. Ricky Fountain. If you would please stand, excuse me, so that they know who to contact. And he's out in your buildings at least 2 or 3 times per week.
So I think I may have an answer to your question. If we look out on our website today, there is a couple of there's some information related to salaries for roles, not people. So you can identify the name, you can't identify the name and tie it to a salary, but you can identify a position, teacher, 3rd grade, whatever. You can, and then a salary range, because they all will vary based on, how much service they have in the community. I don't think we can legally place a name and how much that person makes in a document.
Yes. Sounds good, and we will
verify that.
Definitely.
We will verify that information.
Board President, one more thing. One of the things that I was remiss in responding to was the responses going back to the community. We've posted the information on the website about public participation. We've talked about it in our meetings, but we really do need to come up with a process. So I guess my request would be perhaps at our study session, we have some sort of proposed procedure on how we will respond back to the community, because we've heard that a number of times come through as well. Yeah.
And I'd also like to see, this is a very, very bad example, but just like with the new coach for the Lions, perhaps some dust needs to settle.
Too
I
soon.
would,
Too soon.
I would very much like to see us.
I don't think we're starting off like the Lions.
Definitely not.
About to make me up.
Like opposite day Lions. But certainly, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I just want to say, like, I kind of just like to see the policy that's there written with the 7 to 10 days, like, really find our way to adhere to that, and it'll avoid anyone having to come, hopefully, a second time. All right. I believe we are on item 4, Board Vice President, which are a couple special presentations, and I'd like to turn the meeting over to Dr. Martin Green for that part.
Thank you, Board President. Good evening, community. This summer, we were very fortunate to participate in the Southfield Community Cup Challenge, which was held on August 9th, 2018. A number of companies participated in this friendly yet very competitive competition to donate supplies to our school district. We had 14 buses lined in front of the city center, and it was a very spectacular sight to see them all rushing over with the supplies and stuffing the bus. So we'd like to take an opportunity to thank all of those companies listed on the screen in front of you for their contributions to that. In addition, and I'm walking away from the mic, but I hope that everyone can hear me as a former principal, we have 2 companies here
Doctor,
this evening.
just for the folks at home. I always sometimes forget about that.
That wireless mic.
Wireless mic. Okay.
Yeah.
I may need a pack because I quite often. On? Okay. We have 2 individual companies here this evening, and we would like to present these and thank these individual companies. The first is Jamie Kine, who is the residential sales manager of Guardian Alarm. And President Charles, if you would please come up and join me. Guardian Alarm did make a sizable monetary donation to the district, so we would like the audience to join us in thanking Guardian Alarm for their contribution to the city. Thank you. Absolutely. Mr. Kine, you are requested to come back for another photo op with everyone. If all the trustees could stand, if you don't mind. I'm short, so it won't take much. Thank you. And for the community, please know that we are going to use the majority of this money to invest in additional cameras for our schools for safety. We feel it's most appropriate given that Guardian Alarm made the donation. Next, we have Mr. Eric Rusk, who is the owner of Kenmar, and Mr. Rusk was fortunate to be here this evening, and he is partial to Vandenberg, so he made his donation specific to Vandenberg. So, Ms. Watson, if you could come up as well. The principal of Vandenberg is here. Come up, Ms. Watson. And for those of you that may not be aware, Ms. Watson has returned to Vandenberg as principal of Vandenberg K-5. Over. Have to do the shuffle. Okay. I know. Oh, we need to come down? Okay. Okay, thank you. We are now challenging all other companies that participated to match or exceed the donations from these companies. So once again, we thank you very much for your donations to our district and to our students.
Great. Now we are at item 5 on the agenda, the certificate of accreditation regarding advanced ed. And once again, I'd like to turn it over to the superintendent, please.
Okay, looks like I'll get in all my steps this evening. We are very pleased to state that after a very rigorous accreditation process this spring, our schools have been accredited by the North Central Accreditation, and we would like to thank all of those who contributed, including our BUSSY staff who worked extremely hard on ensuring that all of our documentation was provided. So at this time, I would like to acknowledge those receiving their plaques, and they are good through June 30th of 2023. So at this time, Board President, I would like to present to you the district accreditation for the Southfield Public School District.
Wow, that's important.
Yes, the district.
Just for the first one.
That's the district.
This is the district.
It's major piece.
And, well, we're going to post it on the wall for all to see, but you can hold on to it for now, touch it a little bit. Don't put your fingerprints on it. Okay, at this time, we would like to acknowledge the Southfield High School for the Arts and Technology. None of the administrators are here this evening? Okay, well, we will accept that on their behalf, and then we will address their attendance soon after. Southfield Regional Academy Campus, Mr. Dwayne Eason, principal. You can take yours back, but post it on the wall. I'll come over to visit. No fingerprints. All right. Kennedy Learning Center, Principal Hickman. For our audience, if you have not had an opportunity to schedule time to go by and visit Kennedy Learning Center, it is an amazing place to see in action. So please reach out to Principal Hickman. You don't want to? Please reach out to Principal Hickman. I'm sure she will be more than happy to schedule time with you. Thank you. Next, we have MacArthur K-8 University Academy, and I know I saw Mr. Lake here, as well as Mrs. Gloucester.
Here, you want me to? Okay. Just doing stuff.
Thank you. University High School Academy, Dean Williams. Stevenson Elementary. Stevenson Elementary. Okay. All right, next on deck is Adler Elementary. Almadine. Someone shorter than me, I appreciate that. McIntyre with Principal Beckwith. This is a great way to start the school year. We are only headed upward from this point. Thompson, K-8 International Academy, Dr. T.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, I know that I saw Mr. Hill and Miss Eason from Bernie, K-8.
I love them. I love them all.
They also match
I know.
slightly, so great job. They coordinated. Okay, Mr. Beebe, you can't confuse me by moving the plaques around. Okay. Next, we have Levy, and I did see Principal Jackson.
She be shy, but.
And last but definitely not least, we have Vandenberg Elementary.
Lord.
Upside down. Again, I would like to thank all who participated in this process. We are looking forward to great things happening this school year. Thank you to all the principals and to all of the parents that participated as well. And just as a reminder, we acknowledge Bussy and want to thank them for all their hard work and commitment and contribution to the process. Unfortunately, Advanced Ed does not accredit the Head Start programs, but they are accredited in more ways than one.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to recognize that team because they're here in the audience as well. So please stand up. Stand up, Miss Hill. Stand up. There, thank you. They start out our students for success, and so we are grateful to them for that. Yes.
Yes. Good stuff, and more to come. Very grateful for that. So, board representatives, this is your opportunity to dialogue a bit with us as well. Did you have something, Ms. Rice? Okay. We'll start with, based on my agenda, Ms. Chiangong. Please, I'll get it right by December, I guarantee.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Sharanda Chiangong, and I am a senior at University High School Academy. I am also an active participant in National Honor Society, Sister Accord, Spanish Club, and Class Board, and I am very excited to explain to you new things that are happening in my school. To start, congratulations to the AP Scholars, Jayla Bundy, Treasure Causey, Ashley France, Kirsten Godfrey, Taylor Johnson, Rick Lester, Mark Lewis, Camille McCullum, and Matthew Williamson, who received scores of a 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams. Also, for the AP Scholars with Distinction, congratulations to Tolupe Oladile and Veronica Vankowski, who received an average score of 3.5 or higher on 5 or more AP exams. Congratulations to London Jones, who received the AP Scholar with Honor which means she got an average score of 3.25 on all AP exams. And she was also awarded the AP Seminar and Research Certificate, which means that she received an average score of a 3 or higher in AP Research and AP Seminar. This past Thursday, September 6th, we had our Meet the Teacher Night, which gave a chance for new and current students to form connections with their new teachers, and also allowed for our incoming 6th through 8th graders from Bernie's University Middle School Academy program to get to know their teachers as well as the new building. In our school, we also have 3 new classes, dance, band, and computer science, which gives a chance for our students to express themselves in more ways than one. Every Friday in our school, we have Wear University Spirit Wear Day, which is to promote school spirit and pride. And now every Monday, we have Wear College Gear Day, in an effort to promote a college-going culture, and students are allowed to represent their favorite college or university by wearing their college's gear. Furthermore, we have Seminar Leaders, which is a group of students in the senior class which go to seminars in 8th through 10th graders and discuss topics such as leadership and growth mindset. The theme of this year is Sometimes You Win and Sometimes You Learn. Some events this month is the Middle School Open Gym, which is September 18th from 3:10 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. And we also have our High School Open Gym, which is September 19th from 3:10 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Our first university PTA meeting of the school year is on Tuesday, September 18th at 6:30 in the Media Center. We will also have our first ever flag football tournament on Wednesday, September 19th, sponsored by the Macho Club, which is men of action, character, honor, and optimism. An event that I'm most excited about is we have our picture day and cap and gown photos, which is scheduled on Monday, September 24th. And lastly, we have our parent-teacher conferences, which is Wednesday, October 3rd and Thursday, October 4th. Go Eagles!
Next, there may be a combining of reports. So from the Southfield High School for the Arts and Technology, we have India Pfizer and Tyshawn Price.
Hello everyone, my name is India Pfizer. As I stated before, I am a current senior at Southfield Arts and Technology. I serve as the president of Student Council and an active member of National Honor Society. So to start off, Student Council, we are working on homecoming, which is September 29th, 2018. Our homecoming game will be September 28th, 2018. Our pep rally will be September 28th, 2018, and our Spirit Week will start September 24th. For another organization that we have is called Link Crew. Link Crew, we just started Link Crew last year, and it's for our incoming freshmen, and it's a mentoring program that the upperclassmen will mentor the freshmen as they go on for their incoming year. So it'll be the 11th graders and the 12th graders to guide them through their freshman year. So our first Link Crew, we had a Link Crew orientation that was in the summer of August, and we're having a freshman dance September 19th, 2018, and September 18th we're supposed to have a tailgate party with them. We're supposed to play games, get to know them, for them to get to know us the same day. National Honor Society, we're having a lead girls talk. It's another mentoring program with the freshmen, September 21st, 2018. And we're also having a lead boy chat with the 9th grade boys, September 25th, 2018. And our sports, the football team, we just had a win. Go Warriors. Last Friday, the score was 44-6.
Oh, wow. Didn't even mention your play.
All right. Good evening. My name is Tyshawn Price. I am the Vice President for Student Council. And as I mentioned, I am in 12th grade for Southfield High School for the Arts and Technology. Starting with the first day of school, the cheerleaders football team, NHS, and Student Council And Mr. Hicks and a couple of his fraternity brothers were at the doors greeting students as they came in, helping each other as they came in, and let them know it was okay and welcome back. A friendly reminder that they were coming back to school. Along with the first week of school, we had a class meeting along with a pep rally. The class meeting was separated between the 9th and 12th graders, of course, and the administrative staff, the 10th, all the administrators introduced themselves and gave a little bit about each other and everything. We had a pep rally to loosen everyone up, to have teachers dance in the Soul Train line, had a dance contest against each grade level, and a introduction of the sports teams and organizations. Along with that, we had in 5th and 6th hour, we had a clubs and organizations informational meeting that allowed all the students of each grade level to sign up for either student council or any kind of clubs and organizations that we had in the school. That's all.
Ms. Pfizer, could you please tell us who did we defeat last Friday at that football game?
Southfield High School.
Thank you.
Oh. Even better.
It's not a club, but it's Go Warriors.
Yeah, I like that. We so appreciate your reports, and I know you're not able to stay the length of the meeting. I want to just, a little privilege here, turn it over just briefly to Ms. Smith and Mr. Hicks in terms of a way to make it more robust, our experiences together.
Absolutely. So I've shared before, and certainly the students, we engaged in a lot of dialogue during the interview process that we held with them. And you all, again, you came to us with so many ideas and thoughts and questions about how you can make this a very enriched experience for you this year. And so we are looking to, and we've already put the request in to hold some study sessions where we're going to have just the students. They're going to be the agenda. So we'll get more information to you in the future in terms of those dates and how you can prepare for those. We want to know, just like Ms. Timms came forth and talked about us, having optimists on our agenda, we want to make sure that the student concerns, needs, and how you want to partner to continue to make this district the best it can be for you, for the other students that are coming behind you. We want to make sure that that's front and foremost on our agenda as well. So I'm excited for that as well. And you all know that you can reach out to us. I know that the two of us, Trustee Hicks and myself, were the committee members that brought you in and interviewed you and dialogue with you, but know that you have access to all of the board members as you continue on in between meetings, in between the study session that we have. If there's concerns, questions, is there anything we've already told you, anything that comes up, please let us know. Please let us know. We want to make sure that our students understand that your concerns are of top priority. I know for myself that is very, very true. So, anything you want to add?
No, you covered it.
I echo what the trustees have said. It was something I heard from the SHS A&T report that I just wanted to just give you some kudos on, is that you said over the summer you began, whoever was at the thinking of the minds, this link crew. And what you probably didn't know, or maybe did know, was that this board was also interested in, what can we do to better support those ninth graders from a peer-on-peer space. So we appreciate that in the midst of unknowns over the summer, you guys really said, this is our community. We want to protect it and build it up. And what better way than by reaching back and taking time with the ninth graders. So, brava. And with that, oh, yes, please.
Really quickly, and know that I'm with you. I just asked, actually, when we were over at Wayne State, I wanted to know when homecoming will be, and I'll be with you in spirit. I'll be bummed out, but that day is my wedding day as well, so I won't be there, but I'll be with you in spirit. So you all wish me well on my day, and I wish you well on your day, and I look forward to seeing your pictures. All right.
And unless any other trustees have anything.
I was going to say the same thing, but you stole my thunder, Board President, about the mentoring programs at Southfield High School. But I also wanted to mention the flag football at University High School. I know a number of the parents were really concerned about bringing more sports there, so I just want to recognize them for that as well, too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would also like to add that the homecoming game is our last home game of the season. So for those of you that have not had an opportunity to come out and support the Warriors, please take that opportunity to support our team on that day.
And with that, you're welcome to stick around a little longer. You can exit at your leisure. If sometimes people feel like they need a nudge, you're welcome. You're excused, but you're welcome to stay. I don't want to be the first one to get up. Okay, that takes us right into the report of the superintendent, and I'd like to open the floor to you.
Thank you. Again, good evening, Madam President, trustees, and community assembled. We have been very busy in the Southfield Public School District, and we, first I would like to address the energy bonds, or propose the energy bonds. In the district, unfortunately, we've had to close schools twice to date for the excessive heat. And as I've shared with our community, and I will reiterate again today, we can always accelerate learning and or add additional instructional time to our calendar. What we cannot do is correct any damage caused by excessive heat illnesses. So we will always err on the side of the safety, health, and welfare of our students. However, we do recognize that we have a problem, and we need to correct this before the spring and summer comes back around. We need to improve our facilities. Furthermore, we are committed to being good stewards of our resources. As a result, we are looking at alternative ways to fund the much needed and long overdue building maintenance. One way is through energy bonds. I had an opportunity to meet with a company late last week, and I did provide the trustees with information, and if it is something you want us to pursue, I will invite them out, and our entire community will be privy to the information as well. Essentially, the energy bonds provide energy efficient upgrades to all of our buildings, and the savings generated by way of the upgrades will allow the district to repay the bonds over a 10 to 12 year period. The interest on energy bonds is generally 2 to 3%. This is also part of a larger plan to replace the chillers in those buildings that have been excessively hot, and provide necessary relief to our buildings before the heat returns in the spring and summer of 2019. One of the most important things to note is that this would not be an additional expense to the taxpayers of the district. I will restate, will not be an additional expense to the taxpayers of the district or the district. All energy efficient upgrades would be covered over time through our utility savings. The company that I met with last week estimated that we could save approximately $500,000 on utility bills if we made some of the necessary upgrades. So if that is something you wish for me to pursue, I simply just need a nod of the head and not a full vote. Okay.
No objection.
Okay, thank you. Then I will schedule them to come out and present to the entire board and to the community.
I was just going to say there's some supplemental documents.
Yes, those supplemental documents were emailed to you. We did not print them for the entire community, as I didn't know if, well, I didn't want to waste a tree either, so.
It costs too much. Cheap.
Well, I know you want to move to a paperless platform, so trying to be compliant. Okay, so we will move forward with that. Next, I wanted to share some information regarding the legislative updates. I had an opportunity to meet with some of our state legislators yesterday, actually, and two of the topics that came up that are of importance to us, the Innovative Schools legislation. There is some legislation and possible funding attached to competency-based education, so that's something I wanted to explore further. We may have an opportunity to look at competency-based grading for a particular group of our students versus the entire cohort of our students. And again, there is a significant amount of money attached to that, so I think that that is something that we want to explore further as we move through the year. So I will keep you posted. That is stuck in committee right now, and as it moves out of committee and to the full floor, I will keep you posted. The other is the teacher evaluation bill. At this time, it is still stuck in committee as well. What is most interesting is the bill was written with the assumption that the federal government was going to require this teacher evaluation component and the percentage of the evaluation tied to student performance or student growth. In the end, the federal government did not require the document at all. So now we as a state have put additional guidance in place that was not required by the federal government. Needless to say, it has caused a burden to our teachers, our families, our community, and our administrators who are conducting these evaluations. While we definitely recognize the need to evaluate, the amount of evaluating is excessive based on this. As it currently stands, 40% of the teachers' evaluation this year, and my evaluation as well, they are not in isolation, is based on student growth. And of that 40%, 50% of that is tied to the state assessment, of which we don't receive the data back in a timely manner. So there are a lot of things with that that we have to work through. We're grateful that the legislators are listening to our concerns, and hopefully we can make some corrections in the near future. The last piece with legislation is we're going into lame duck session really soon, and we're concerned about a truancy bill that is floating around that has a number of issues, and we are concerned that someone may try to move it through during lame duck, and also the accountability A through F grading. So those are some things that we lifted in the conversation with our legislators. So I will keep you and our community posted as those things.
Thank you. And to that note, I'm charging Trustee Poole and Trustee Robinson, who I'll make sure to follow up with, as you get those communications, we definitely want to be communicating that with the CSBA.
Yeah, we do have an advocacy group at the state level for the Michigan Association of School Boards, and those are topics that we've discussed in the past, especially the 40% student achievement, which is tied back to your evaluation. We felt it would be unfair, and we're still fighting that issue as it relates to that. We need something that's more realistic. So, point well taken. I'll take it back to the Government Relations Committee.
Thank you. We are more interested in measuring student growth because we are truly here for students to grow,
right,
versus having our evaluations tied to a stagnant once per year assessment that is autopsy data by the time that we actually
That's an excellent point, Dr. Green, because you want to take the student, you want to meet the students where they are and show where they were and where you brought those students.
Yes.
Absolutely. Good point.
The next item on the agenda, the administrative certification update. I am very pleased to report that as of today, all instructional supervisors, assistant principals, and directors hold the proper credentials and/or certifications for their respective positions. So congratulations, Southfield Public Schools. One area that I wish to highlight is that of the supervisors for specialized student support. I know that there was some concern in the community when they looked up on the teacher certification tool. They did not see the certifications. I would like to highlight that one of the supervisors was granted full privileges by the Michigan Department of Education in 2011 to serve in that role, so we do not have to reapply for anything with that person. The other supervisor holds a PhD in speech pathology from the University of Michigan, a license to practice from the state of Michigan, and an administrative certification from the Michigan Department of Education. So our staff that we are hiring are highly qualified in the areas in which they serve. To the extent that Ms. Pam English, who is our facilitator from the My Excel program, brought in her administrative certification as well. She said if she is going to provide advice to our building principals, she needed to demonstrate that she too holds the proper credentials, and renewed her administrative certification and brought us a copy. So thank you to Mrs. English for doing that as well. Next on the agenda, we have a guest. In July of 2018, we requested an internal control review. We know that the original agenda said forensic audit, but I've been corrected by Mr. Eric Conforti from Plant Moran. We requested that they review our business office, particularly with disbursements, our athletic department, credit cards, and professional development. This evening, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Eric Conforti. I've been practicing all day and still didn't get it right. I'm sorry. The senior manager for Plant Moran. So he's going to share with the trustees and with our community the results of that internal control audit.
And I'm sure it's not on his resume, but an awesome softball player too.
Yes. Had I have known you were on the other team, we would have.
Yeah, I don't know.
What a fun night to be here. We've got big checks and accreditations, and now I get to wow you with internal controls. So I'm sorry for that. So Brian Murphy is here with me as well. The two of us were with Plant Moran's forensic accounting team. We do spend most of our time doing forensic audits, so investigations. Fortunately, we were here with the district doing proactive work, because the district wanted to look forward and help put in controls to make sure that someone like us doesn't have to come out and actually do an investigation. So what we looked at, we went through, well, today we'll go through the scope of the engagement, our process, highlight the key findings, and then a Q&A. I know most of you on the board have been informed of our findings verbally. This can really be a 10-minute presentation, it could be an hour presentation. We're going to start at the 10-minute level, and to the extent you have questions, we'll dive down. But all of this is also in the report as well. We just feel it's helpful to kind of come and explain some of it to you and open it up for your questions. So the scope of our engagement, we look specifically at fiscal year 2018. Again, this is not an internal audit. We're not giving an opinion, and it's not a forensic audit. We're just here to help. We're here to say, essentially, here's maybe a gap in the internal controls, and because of that gap, here's how someone could steal money. And so here's something you could do to prevent that from happening. Again, the departments we looked at were the business office in regards to disbursements, so vendor checks, payroll, basically anything with cash going out the door. We also looked at the athletic department, specifically with ticket revenue, credit cards, and then professional development reimbursement requests.
And Eric, if I may interject, we also looked at fundraising.
We did, yes. So, and we'll get into that a little bit as well as we go through our interviews and we identify gaps in the processes. We work with management to decide maybe we should tailor and look in another direction, just because if this is a risky process, we should address that as well. So how do we do this? We interviewed about 12 people, and for those of you that are familiar with Office Space, it was sort of like a Bob and Bob type interview of, what exactly do you do here? And we went through in painstaking detail. All the interviews were probably between 1 and 2.5 hours. And we really covered in detail what people can do as well as what they're supposed to do. Because there are times where maybe someone's routine task doesn't involve cutting checks, but if they have access in the system to cut checks, that's still a risk from a fraud standpoint. So we go through and try to figure out everyone's abilities in addition to their kind of responsibilities. So our timeline, we started in early August. We came out here a couple times to do interviews with different people and to actually look at some of the data. And here we are. We're going to go through our draft report, and then there's some time before we finalize the report in case there's any questions or maybe additions that need to be put into the report before we finalize it.
Brings us to our process. So like Eric said, so the first thing we do is we would test the credit cards, conference reimbursement, athletic department, and fundraisers. And so to do this, we would detail test select transactions. And in the case of credit cards and conference reimbursements, that would be involving looking at receipt information, comparing it to the personnel manual to make sure it's in compliance with the policy. For the athletic department, we looked at the sales tickets for events, and then fundraisers. We can get into that as well later with what we did and did not do there. For the data testing, we also performed analytical procedures. So here we were working alongside the school employees. They were able to provide us with detailed reports that we could then use to run some analysis that can identify items that could potentially be problematic. And so most of the tests are, for the most part, self-explanatory, and as we get into future slides, we can show some of the results there.
And for those of you not privy to the report yet, the EMF would be the employee master file. So we basically get a database of all the employees and the address information, and then the VMF would be the vendor master file, where we'll get the same information. We do a lot of cross-references to make sure that, you know, an employee hasn't set up, say, a fake company or even maybe a real company, and they're overbilling the school and approving their own disbursements.
Which brings us to here. So and then we tie everything together, and we put together a draft report, and then as we go through the findings, we can start to describe what we have and discuss any revisions if we need to.
Gentlemen, for the purposes of our audience and our community, I would like to share that this says that it's a draft, and that is what our trustees have. We also did not provide that for the public because it has a lot of employees' personal information in this report. However, moving forward, we will have a summary of the report to share with our community.
And so to start, we looked at the internal control recommendations based on our interviews and detailed testing, analytics, and summary, and we'll finish off with a summary and Q&A. To start, detailed testing, like we mentioned, we started with credit cards. And so we selected 5 individuals and tested the entire monthly activity for them. And then we identified several anomalies, which we can address in a few slides. For example, there was an instance where there was a possible personal expense that went through that was approved. It looks like it had been identified, but still approved for payment. Sales tax in the center image there was also approved. So, and then in the far one, that is an example of a non-itemized receipt, so you cannot see the full detail of the item that was actually expensed.
And so coming back to these, you know, when we say anomalies, our testing was really, what does the personnel manual say is required, is from a review standpoint, from a supporting documentation to be reimbursed or to use a district credit card. And so that's where we're getting these anomalies from. They're not our rules. They're not even maybe best practice. It's the district's rules. This is the personnel policy that says when you use district credit card, you need to turn in an itemized receipt so the district can review and see what you spent it on. There's tip policy of nothing over 15%. There's obviously the district is tax exempt, so you should not be making purchases and incurring sales tax. And so that's the sort of anomalies that we found, and this is just representative examples. But it was somewhat systemic in that there were a lot of non-compliance findings, I would say. We didn't find anything that was one employee committing all of the issues and it looked intentional and malicious. It's just a point of, and they're even being found by the departments. You can see their notes, tax on that middle receipt, membership with a question mark on the receipt on the left.
Okay. Do you mind if perhaps you could speak to this slide but switch it to the next one for me? Thank you.
Certainly. Yep.
Thank you.
And so, again, it wasn't a pattern from a certain individual, but it was systemic where the review process worked. It caught these findings, but then they got pushed through anyways. And so, you know, at the back part of our presentation is going to go through sort of the recommendations, and that's what you have in writing as far as here's how you should, or at least some ideas of how you should change the processes. And I think that the big takeaway with these are you're finding them, but then that's it. Mm-hmm. And so the next step needs to happen, and we'll get into that a little further.
Thank you.
Okay. And then moving on, so our athletic department testing, so we selected 3 different report of ticket sales. And so here we identified a couple items such as missing ending ticket numbers, multiple ticket numbers, inconsistent documentation, as well as an observation that we can address. And so here we have an example of what these reports look like, and they're designed to document the beginning tickets for ticket sale events, the ending ticket sales, and then as well as the total amount of revenue generated based on the calculation of the number of tickets sold. And so we have identified a couple items that we addressed for missing ending ticket numbers, the unclear documentation as far as how many tickets were actually sold. And then at the very bottom as well, there's also an item for any variances. And there was one instance where there was a variance between the number of tickets, calculated tickets sold, but it was correctly identified, and there's a great process that's in place where they attached there's 2 damaged tickets that were attached to make up the variance, so it very clearly shows why there was a variance, so it's a good process that's already in place. And then I think some of our recommendations will actually expand on that just a little bit.
And so again, just to recap this is, let's say, a football game. You've got the roll of tickets, and people are accepting cash for those. And so if I'm accepting cash, I could give out a ticket, receive the cash, and put the cash in my pocket. Well, there's this form that I record the very first ticket in that roll and the very last. You take one minus the other, and it says I sold 100 tickets, so you should be able to multiply that by the price of the game and say here's how much cash was deposited. So that's the importance of these forms. And again, if there's issues with what ticket numbers were the first and last, nobody can then go through and say, well, there was 100 tickets and I only have $300 when tickets were $5 a piece. Where's the other $200? So it's not that we're finding fraud, but we're finding that the processes in place to prevent fraud or catch fraud aren't necessarily being followed. So it could let someone get away with it if they were conducting it. So then the next thing we got into, just as we were going through interviews and looking at some of the forms that the district has as far as their standard forms of how processes should work, we found our way into the fundraiser process. And typically how the process works is a school administrator would say, I want to do this fundraiser. Let's say I want to buy 100 t-shirts for $5 and sell them to the students for $10, and it'll be a fundraiser for the school. They have to fill out a form that gets provided to you all, and it gets approved. They're supposed to do the fundraiser, and then there's a second form, which is kind of like a recap form. I bought the 100 shirts. I only ended up selling 75, so here's the money and how much it is, and here's the remaining shirts. It's similar to the ticket sales, where it gives someone after the fact the ability to go back and kind of test to make sure all the numbers are correct. As we went through our interviews and talked with some of the administrators and as well as individuals in the business office, not only are these forms not being filled out, the post fundraiser forms, some administrators aren't even aware they exist. So, there's a significant risk. And again, this is risk. We didn't identify it as happening, but we wouldn't be able to identify it because these forms aren't being completed. But conceivably, someone could go do a fundraiser, sell $500 worth of t-shirts, and just keep 300 and deposit 200, and there would be no way to know, that 300 ever even existed to begin with. So it's, again, kind of coming back and changing that process. So getting into our analytics, we like to do a lot of analytics because, interviews are only worth sort of what that person is telling us. So then we go and substantiate some of that against the data. And these analytics are designed to find the riskiest transactions. So in the report, you'll see employee names, you'll see matching addresses. That doesn't mean that employee is stealing. It just means that that transaction or that individual, because of that test, has a higher risk of that transaction being problematic compared to the rest. And so if we're only going to spend a certain amount of time and district's money looking at things, you want to look at the riskiest items. So that's where we work on these analytics. So one of the analytics we did was we identified any payment to an employee more than 30 days after they were noted as terminated. Because in theory, that shouldn't happen, but for rare exceptions. There was one finding where on a certain day, I think it was hundreds of employees were paid, and it had to do with the Office of Retirement Services refund that needed to be issued, I think because of what happened within legislation. So we pulled that out of our analysis, but this is just kind of a snapshot on the top of kind of the day of the check, and then on the left is the employee number, and day of their termination. So you can see just based on the quantity of numbers in there, there may be for 2 of those days a special exception because there's so many on those days. But we would really recommend you look into those other ones. It may have been a legal settlement, it could have been a sick bank payout that just happened late because of slow communication, but they're transactions that we would recommend that you just go pull the file and make sure that this was proper. So another one we did was employee addresses and the employee master file matching vendor addresses. We don't have any pay information in here as far as the employee is concerned. We just have the pay information as far as the vendor is concerned. The good thing about this, while we had results, none of the results, for lack of better words, scary, because the vendor names all matched the employee names. And typically what that means is they were paid an expense reimbursement, because that's how they're paid. If they incur expenses on their behalf, submit a reimbursement request, then they'll be paid through the vendor process. What would be scary is if we had an employee name on the left and on the right it was like ABC Consulting or ABC Tutoring Services, something like that, where those addresses are matching. You obviously can still research these findings, but we just, from our standpoint, they're not as high risk as what you would expect from an employee-vendor match. So that's fantastic.
And could you forward past the screen as it contains confidential information?
Like, generally speaking, any PD or PII, I'm uncomfortable with it being on the screen at all.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
And so
This feels
Tell
PD.
we can go past that one too. Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
So with that one though, that is a test that we would recommend is further researched. So that other test that we went past was what we'd call positive pay deductions. So a pay deduction, let's think your retirement. So let's say your gross pay is $1,000 and $100 is deducted for retirement every check. Well, these pay deductions that we have provided to you were positive. So they were actually adding to the gross pay, which you wouldn't expect a payroll deduction to add to pay. So it is kind of an anomaly. So we've provided you that list as well so that you can look into that. Potentially it could be a correction of maybe an incorrect check prior, but it's something worth researching. So getting into the internal control recommendations, the most significant risk we found from a process standpoint, and I believe this is one you may be familiar with, is really in the payroll department. And again, this isn't a reflection of any of the employees in that department, it's a reflection of the process. We'd like to say, assume the employee who's there right now wins the lotto and goes away. The next person comes in as a scheming person. What could they do to get money out of the district? That's a little happier than the proverbial bus. So we like to say wins the lotto. But the issues in payroll is really your payroll manager. They have the ability to add an employee. They could then change information of existing employees, including pay rates, such as their own. They could input or adjust hours, causing additional pay. And they can even input special pay codes, so one-time pay or bonus. And then they're also the one that processes the payroll, which with direct deposit, you don't have to worry about checks being signed and someone catching it because that would just go straight to their bank account. So it's really a segregation of duty issue. If this payroll manager wanted to, it's facilitated for them to commit, schemes, which is why we focused a lot of our analytics on the payroll processes, which again, we said that there weren't many scary anomalies. So it's good, but it's something that needs to be changed going forward. Another thing that was pointed out in our interviews is that there may be summer employees, and I don't mean seasonal summer, but employees who work during the summer that aren't necessarily recording their vacation time when they've taken it. And so it's keeping time in their banks that they should have deducted. From a financial standpoint, it's not a huge risk to the district because the payouts are pretty minimal as far as there's no rollover, and the amount that they're actually paid out, I think, is just a couple days. But it still is just a gap in the process that if people are taking time off, we need to make sure that it's being deducted from their time bank, especially if they are getting a check at the end of the year for the leftover. So Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the batch reports that you get, the list of checks every, I don't know if it's every board meeting or every couple board meetings. That's a great control because you should be aware of all the checks cut. What we noted, though, is there's really no sequence testing to make sure that the last check you looked at this meeting is only one number less than the first check you look at next meeting. So if I was someone in the accounts payable department, I could create that report and give it to you maybe midday today, cut 5 checks to myself fictitiously, and then next time around I just set my filters that I don't pull any from today, I start with tomorrow, and you wouldn't be aware of those checks. So we want to make sure that we're reconciling those, gaps between the two, as well as making sure there's no missing checks in that report itself. So the district uses positive pay, which for those of you not familiar, positive pay is essentially when you send a list of the checks that you're planning to cut to the bank. And that way if someone tries to cash a fake check, so maybe Craigslist scam or something like that, and they want to make it look like it was a check from the district, the bank will deny it because it wasn't one of the pre-approved checks that the district uses. So that's fantastic that you have that control in place. And it's automatically uploaded to the bank as soon as checks are cut, which is a good control because if I am an accounts payable person or accounting person and I cut myself a problematic check manually, I would need to somehow try to get it into that report or the bank's not going to cash it. And so you kind of eliminate that risk of a manual check. But we just always like to educate our clients, make you aware that if they were to cut a problematic check through the real process, it won't be denied. So we don't want you to take too much comfort in the fact that just because I have positive pay doesn't mean I can't have check issues. So you still could have an internal check issue that it wouldn't catch. But it's fantastic that you have that for all of the other check issues out there. And then this last one, it's one that most organizations don't feel or recognize as a big control deficiency. And it's where if I'm at a school, say facilities manager, and I order some goods, the invoices are typically coming to me. I'll sign off, approve them, and then forward them to AP. We like to see those routed through AP first, and then sent to me where I sign and kick back. And it seems like an extra step, but we have investigated several schemes where I will get the invoice, I will convert it from PDF to Word, I'll inflate all of the costs, and then turn it in, and now you've just overpaid that vendor without realizing it. And if it's a vendor like Dell or someone with worthwhile stuff from a street value standpoint, I can then use the overpayments to go and buy goods and sell them. And a couple of years ago, we found someone took about $140,000 doing that exact scheme, and their job was to buy janitorial supplies and computers. And so it's a scheme that can add up over the long term, and it's just something that you don't really think about. So we just recommend having maybe like an AP at southfieldk12.org email that everything gets routed through first, so that they have kind of a clean version of the invoice that they could compare to the checks.
Moving on to the conference reimbursements and accounts payable and expense reports. So for the credit card purchases, we compared the supporting documentation, receipts, credit card statements, and matched them and compared them to the personnel manual. And then what we found is some of the items that we talked about before, things like, not always provided on a timely basis. So there were instances where some items were not, the receipts were not provided to the accounts payable department very quickly, which can make things challenging as far as reconciling items to get them paid. It also gives an employee extra time to potentially create fictitious documentation. So that's just something that we would like to recommend that policy is enforced to ensure that these documents are provided on a timely basis. In one of the items that we had previously mentioned, there was a potential personal purchase on a card. It does not look like it was sought for reimbursement, however, it was still paid. So that's something that we would like to bring up as far as making sure that the policy is then reviewed and enforced.
you'll notice the recommendation for probably the next 3 or 4 are all pretty consistent because they all relate to the same thing. Again, it's just your policies. These items, you know, most of them may be reasonable, but they don't comply with the policy. And so the issue is either consider revising the policies, maybe bringing them up to date if tips should be more than 15%, or the timing of when things should be submitted. And if you're not going to update the policies, then it's a point of enforcing whatever consequences you have available when people aren't complying versus just letting it go. That's been the biggest issue. And as Brian said, with the timely support, there are websites out there where you can create fake receipts. And if I want to spend $40, $50, I can actually buy logos and letterheads of real companies and print it out on receipt paper. And so it's important that these things are getting in timely because people are getting more creative of doing these purchases.
In addition, like we mentioned before, there was an instance where sales tax was charged. So again, we would like to make sure that these policies are in fact enforced. And same idea with the non-itemized receipts. There are a couple items, again, the tip policy, same concept, making sure that these are enforced. The personnel manual states a meal while out of town maximum. And there were a number of items where that amount had been exceeded, but they were still approved. So that's something that, again, should be reviewed and then enforced through the review process. The conference request forms, so this would be for personal expenses incurred while out on business travel. Some of these require pre-approval before employees are allowed to go out and get these trainings. There are a couple instances where they were missing some key information, which can make things challenging as far as a review process and could potentially allow for unauthorized or somebody to submit expenses that would be pre-approved, however, they're not for a legitimate approved purchase.
So similar to the findings with those reports, the review process with those is there's a pre-approval form and it lists the dates of the conference, it lists how much you think you'll be spending, and then you can go through and AP can look at that and cross-reference it to, okay, your flight that you submitted or your mileage that you're submitting, does that reconcile to the dates that you were supposed to be at this conference? We found some forms where that was missing, so you can't reconcile that. The other thing we found is that within the board members' policies, as far as how your conferences are approved, they're approved at the committee meetings, but they don't include these forms. And so I know they're formally approved, but there's nothing for AP on the back end to kind of go through and look at your receipts and say, does this make sense for the conference that they were supposed to be at? So we would just recommend that you complete the same forms that they're completing, only for the sake of the review process afterwards.
Okay.
And so with credit cards, we looked at, there were a couple occurrences that we found where the district was improperly charged by the vendors. So there was one where the district incurred 4 Marriott charges when it was only supposed to be 1.
Yes.
And we followed up with AP and asked about it, and they had showed us where they followed up with Marriott and asked for a refund for those 3. So that was fantastic that the process caught that. The issue was Marriott never gave you that refund, and it sort of got forgotten about until we surfaced it in this. And so it ended up being about $1,000 that the district's now getting back that, had it not kind of been resurfaced, it likely could have remained forgotten about. And so, and I think there was also a conference that was recently canceled that might have been $3,000 or $4,000 from one of the former administrators. And the same sort of thing happened where it was requested for a refund. There's a great process there, but it may have slipped through the cracks afterwards as far as following up to see if we actually got this. So we would request that something as simple as, maybe you have a sheet that anytime a refund is noted, it's put on that Excel sheet on the shared drive. Maybe once a quarter, someone's job is to go and look at that and go and look at the credit cards and just make sure you got those, because it was, I think you're getting $4,000 or $5,000 back now just from finding those refunds.
We're actually getting $8,000
$8,000,
back.
fantastic. We love when we can help pay for some of our fees. So.
Me too.
Good point.
Next one we found is that there are multiple district personnel with gas cards, reasonably so. But what we had discovered is that these were not being reviewed from a use standpoint. So conceivably, someone may have been able to fill up their personal car or even maybe a gas can, things like that. So there should be a review process in place where the mileage of the vehicles is compared just from a reasonable standpoint to the gas used. And we discovered that the director of facilities just recently got access to this information to where he or she can start reviewing that. And so that is going to be a process they are now going to implement where they monitor that activity going forward. So coming back to facilities, until recently, there was one person who was responsible basically for everything Home Depot. So similar to kind of the payroll where one person had control of the entire cycle, there was someone who could place an order, approve the order, go pick up the order, and then AP would just pay it because it's been approved by the right person, even though that person had full authority. So that's, obviously, again, anytime someone has that much power, it's a significant risk. That has been changed, and I believe it was changed even right before we got here, so it wasn't us. It was a good review by administration and management of that area, but we just pointed it out because it has been a hole for a while. The next thing are just work orders. This is a very specific scheme it would be addressing, pretty low risk, but we'd like to point out everything. And the work being performed on a work order is not being verified afterwards from a standpoint of what was implemented. So let's say there was a work order request put in for a toilet repair. That facilities person could look at that toilet and say, okay, it just needs a new handle, but order a new toilet. And maybe they just fix that new handle, and now they have a new toilet for themselves because no one's going back in afterwards and saying what was ordered on this work order and what's actually in the school. So it's just another one of those risks, very specific scheme, but our job is to think like criminals, so that's why we're pointing these out so that you can prevent them. The last thing we noticed with facilities was that in the past, certain facilities are rented to employees for personal events. They have to pay for them, but the rates charged were not always consistent. There needs to be a formal rate list that every employee is held accountable to, regardless of how well they may know the person who's collecting the funds. And so it's just important that that process is filled out or properly followed. And then again, we touched on fundraisers. There were a couple of occurrences where fundraisers occurred without the approval process, but more so the biggest issue with the fundraisers was that closed form needs to be completed. We have investigated other districts for this activity. It is a very easy scheme to commit if no one is looking at those post-close forms. And then the last thing, those ticket sale reports, the language on them is somewhat confusing as far as what ticket numbers should be written down. And I think most of these individuals are volunteers. So we would just recommend you consider revising the report, make it easier to follow, and maybe even have someone staple the first number or the first ticket and the last ticket. And then again, doing that gap test to make sure the last ticket number of a roll from last week's game is only one ticket less than the first ticket number of the roll from this week's game. Because I could staple the last ticket and then rip off 10. And if you did last minus first the next week, it's still going to work, but now I have 10 tickets I can sell and pocket the cash. So again, just checking those gaps. So that I know I flew through that, but I know you have a lot to digest in the report itself as well. So we just wanted to make ourselves available and kind of share our findings with everyone at the request of the superintendent, and be available for questions if you have questions on any of these.
Well, my question is really more for Dr. Green. So as I look in the back of the packet, there's a chart with the recommendations.
Yes.
Have we implemented any remediation to some of these recommendations?
Yes, we received the formal document at 1:30 a.m. this morning.
That's right.
And I did have a number of conversations with them along the way. So many of the things that they recommended, I started the process before we received this document. As you heard earlier, we are recommending a new hire for the business department to put in some of those internal controls. With the football game that we just had on Friday, we did do the stapling of the tickets. So some of the things that we could implement immediately, we did. I also retracted many of the district credit cards that were existing in the universe to kind of monitor the limits or limit the number of credit cards that were out there. So we are focused on the items identified with the red dot as a priority and then moving through the recommendations. I also met with a Neola representative today who is coming in to examine all of our policies in the book to make recommendations on which ones we update as soon as possible.
I'm sorry, you're right. You did just receive the document.
Yes.
So I guess my ask would be, I mean, if not the full board, at least me as treasurer, this spreadsheet, I'm looking for the two main columns. What we did to remediate the potential risk and the completion date.
Timeline of completion.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I think we probably need to keep looking at this until every item
everything is complete.
Complete.
I agree.
And we're happy to send you the form even in Excel, so it's something that you can just add right to, and it'll be the same format that you're used to looking at now from this, and you can have that.
Trustee Rice. Yeah, one caveat, Trustee Hicks, is that in that list of recommendations, it talks about from accounts payable receiving a batch report on a biweekly basis that's presented to the board. My ask would be that be one of our first reports for our finance committee.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
My question is, how often would you recommend a district undertaking this type of process where it's more on the proactive end as opposed to an investigation?
Right. I mean, the statistics always show it's much cheaper to be proactive than to quantify. Although fraud within schools is usually lower amounts because there's not as much money to take. Typically what we recommend, that the heavy work is the first time around, right? Because we've surfaced all of the issues in these departments that we could. So what we would recommend usually is maybe a year, 2, if you need it, kind of deal. We'd come back and just look at these items specifically, and we can kind of vouch for any response that the administration has as far as here's what we did. We can go and test and say, okay, you raised the policy of tips to 18% and we're ensuring compliance. We can go through and look at credit card receipts again and see that. Or sequences are now being compared in the athletic department. We can come back and look and make sure that is written on the documentation so that what's being told. It's a trust but verify that it can happen. So we usually say a year to 2 years, just so it usually gets really good in the beginning because we've got you nice and scared, but then it gets lax because it gets back into the process. And so we like to wait some time, and that way if anything has become lax, then we can help refresh it.
So Board President, my ask would be, and Trustee Rice, I don't know if you were thinking this, but as we're writing up our description for our Finance Committee, that we write this in as one of the items that we're responsible for making sure, especially as the board changes, administration changes, that we don't become, lax in, 4 to 6 years or so, but that we're keeping up with these type of processes.
I agree.
Madam President. Also, what will be key in this entire process is the progress monitoring and holding people accountable for these policies that you're putting in place and that I'm implementing on a daily basis. So when I bring recommendations forward to hold individuals accountable for some of these very things, I think that will send a strong message to the community as well.
I did have one more question. So based on some of your recommendations, for example, the one about the sales tax, do you all have anything that lists any opportunities for us to then go back to, go through our previous receipts for the past year and say that, legal practice, you can still go, I'm sorry, you can go back and potentially go back to vendors and retrieve money?
So I don't know the legal answer to if that's
I just
something that
know-
you have the recourse of doing. I mean, it's a process. You wouldn't need us for that process. We'd be happy to help. But
I'm
that
just
is
basing
something
it
that
off
could
of
be.
experience with maybe other municipalities or
Typically,
districts.
the dollar amount at issue isn't, it's just a cost benefit of what do you have, what does your staff have time to work on. I mean, unless you're making very large, big ticket items that you happen to pay tax on. But if you're paying tax on, I think that one receipt was $300. If there's several of those out there, that can add up. But, it's a cost benefit, and we've not worked with any district personally to try and go back and get those funds.
Okay.
I have another ask, or it just triggered something else. Would it be feasible for the board members to have something? And I just remember from the area council, we used to carry around with us the non-exempt tax ID number, so that when we went to a restaurant or had to purchase things, like we always go to conferences and dinner, breakfast, lunch, I do see tax on those receipts. So if we had something, I don't know if it's on the back of our badge or our business card or what have you, that we can present to them to say, this is a tax-exempt organization, I'm a school board member for that district, we shouldn't be charged tax.
Many of the organizations now request the actual form versus the letter, so I will check into what we can provide so that you don't have a stack of letters everywhere.
Yeah.
And for just to add to this conversation for the board, when I worked for a specific district, if staff members went out and made purchases and they did not utilize that tax exempt, they were held responsible for that. So they paid the tax. They didn't get the reimbursement. Exactly, it was a donation. They didn't get the reimbursement for that taxable, the taxable cost that was added.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate a point that Dr. Green had made too, that this isn't a report card of shame on accounts payable. Accounts payable is finding these items on the receipts. It's coming down more to the enforcement and the accountability of what do we do now that we've found these items. So that's really, from a process standpoint, where you need to focus on a lot of these, because we did see some of their notations on the receipts. It's not as if someone's being lax or not paying attention as they're approving receipts. So we just wanted to reiterate that point.
Good point.
Thank you. I know there's a lot to digest and dig into, so I'd like to pass it back over to the superintendent to continue her report. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great work. Okay, on to a lighter and happier note. Big Green Community Learning Gardens. Those of you that have had an opportunity to drive through our district perhaps noticed that we have community gardens going in throughout our district. These spaces will serve as free outdoor classrooms that can be used to educate our students in various subjects. And there is no cost to the district for these gardens. Each garden is estimated to cost between $20,000 to $30,000. So we thank Big Green for their contribution. And at this time, we'll cue the video, and then I'll tell you where you can come and see the kickoff at the respective schools. So we are very excited about the work and the exploration that our students will experience this year. Stevenson held their kickoff on Monday, the 10th in the a.m. Southfield A&T was scheduled for that day, but the weather did not cooperate, so theirs has moved to Monday, September 17th in the afternoon. Vandenberg will hold theirs on tomorrow. from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., and Kennedy Learning Center will hold their kickoff on Monday, September 17th from 9 to noon. So we invite our communities to come out. I did make the request of the arborists that they give us special consideration with our dear friends that visit our facilities on a daily basis, if they can consider putting in some type of screening or fencing or something, so they are taking that into account as well.
I hate to be that guy, but in lieu of some recent news about vandalism at in like just egregious levels, maybe some of that 30K, 1,000 of it or so could be in terms of camera, surveillance and things like that.
Well, I don't know that Big Green will afford us that opportunity because these are also meant to be community gardens in that our families can come out and enjoy the benefits of the harvest as well. So
right. This
maybe from the Guardian Alarm donation, we can look at some cameras for
possibly.
So we'll consider that. Not to belabor the point and to move us along because I know that the evening is slipping by, I will move quickly. We are hosting a parent partnership series that will begin on tomorrow. It will be the second Wednesday of every month from September through May from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Tomorrow is Get Connected, Stay Connected, ways in which parents can connect to their school and understand their students' growth and progress along the way. The October meeting is on October 12th, and that will focus on the blueprint, which is the system. It's the framework for the systems that we are putting in place for the entire district. So that will afford the parents an opportunity to learn more about the blueprint and see how they can support us in this endeavor.
Mr. Joyce.
Where's that?
That is going to be held here at JWE on tomorrow. The October meeting, we are going to move to the Commons area at Southfield A&T to afford more parents an opportunity, as it is open to all parents pre-K through 12. And we are looking for topics of interest for all of our parents, not just a specific subgroup of our parents at these meetings. Our STEAM partnership with Bernie, very pleased to announce that yesterday I met with the Oakland County Links, which is a chapter of the Links Incorporated. They will provide funding and STEAM opportunities for students in grades 4 through 8 at Bernie K-8 school. Some of the opportunities include, but are not limited to, personalized tutorial services facilitated by students at Oakland University, field trips to various sites to engage with the STEM professionals, and also an annual holiday celebration. Again, those are some of the opportunities, but not limited to those opportunities. Next, we have coffee and conversation. One of the things that is very important to us as a district and to the community is that of the resale property of their homes. And the realtors that are selling the homes need to know more about our district. We have a lot of phenomenal programs, we have amazing students, and we have great educators. We need to share that information. So we are hosting on Thursday, September 27th from 10 a.m. to 12 noon here at JWE, coffee and conversation with licensed realtors that generally sell in the Southfield area to keep them well informed and accurately informed about the great things that we have here in our school district.
Long overdue.
Lastly, there was a request from the community regarding the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan. I did meet with Cheryl, and I also did some follow-up with that. The next grant application is due on November 15th. We will form a committee to begin drafting that application. I do understand that there may be as much as $200,000 sitting in that foundation specifically for Southfield. In addition, I learned that there are 6 scholarships specific to students that live in the city of Southfield and the city of Southfield Lathrop. So we are going to ensure that we have applicants for all 6 of those scholarships. That concludes my report.
Very good. Thank you. Item 8 on the agenda, action items. Looks like we are at item A on that list. If I could get a motion to open and approve the consent agenda containing minutes from the August 2018 meetings, and if there are any discussion or such. So a motion to open and approve.
So moved.
Support.
Just one correction. My attendance for August 24th needs to mark me present.
Anything else regarding that consent agenda? If not, then Madam Secretary, if you would, please call for the vote.
Trustee Hicks?
Yes.
Trustee Paul?
Yes.
Trustee Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Joyce?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Unanimous.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to open and approve Report 5727, the personnel report?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Discussion?
Just a question on what's the increased amount?
The overall increased amount? Which item are you specifically referencing?
The highlighted. Our revision is based on the increase for the fiscal fund impact. How much do we know?
What page?
11
We're not
in
on
my
that.
packet.
We're not on that.
Oh, so she said 5758.
We're on personnel.
Oh, sorry about that.
Anything else for 5727? And pardon if I misspoke. Hearing none. Personnel report. Madam Secretary, the vote, please.
Trustee Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Paul?
Yes.
Trustee Hicks?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Trustee Joyce?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Look for a motion to open and approve 5728, the revised roof replacement at the Bussey Early Childhood Center.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Discussion?
Now my question.
Yes.
Okay.
Same question.
Okay. So,
I was going to say, with us this evening, we also have the gentleman from Barton Mallow.
Okay.
If you have any additional.
great. So I think the question was with regards to
What's the increase?
increase
Good
for the
evening.
revised. Yes.
Good evening, thanks for having us. My name is Larry Bukowski, Project Manager with Barton Mallow.
I'm Steve Brewers. I'm the Director of Operations for our K-12 group within Barton Mallow Company.
The original not-to-exceed budget was based off of a roof report done by a roofing vendor. It was a very detailed, very thorough report done by a very reputable vendor. But there were a few components that weren't taken into consideration with that report. First of all, it was a simple replacement of the roof material, just basically the roof membrane. However, upon further investigation, there are already 2 layers of roof on that building, and by code, that requires a full replacement of the entire system, the insulation down to the deck. So the scope is a little larger than the original report had budgeted. Also, current code requires actually thicker insulation than what you currently have on that building. So those are the scope increases. Second, the report assumed typical working hours, so basic summer construction, 7 to 3:30 working hours. This work's now going to be done during non-instructional times, so either after hours or on weekends, to prevent disruption to the building. So there will be a slight shift premium as it relates to that. Third of all, the report was for the estimated replacement cost only. It didn't include any sort of contingencies for a what if we find damaged structural deck while we replace this roof. So a sort of a 10% contingency allocation was also added to this budget. So those are the 3 main factors, which is why we're recommending a not to exceed increase for this project.
Thank you.
Anything else on this?
So the only question that I would have was if items are uncovered, such as what you stated, how are we going to be kept apprised of the additional costs that are overruns?
So I met with the gentleman right before this meeting, and I asked that I receive a weekly report as to what they're finding, and I will share that information with you upon receipt. However, if it's an expense tied to it, then I will bring it back.
And there will be a third-party roofing consultant who, no additions will be made without quantification, visualizing those changes, things of that nature.
So as you uncover things, you take snapshots?
Quantify,
Yeah.
and and price accordingly.
And I see here that approximately 30% may be covered by Head Start pending the approval of the Policy Council. When can we expect a vote on that?
Probably early October. Early October, or sooner. If you're able, I know you're what do they call it, convalescing.
Good evening, board, community. We have to first go to the Office of Head Start because that is carryover monies that we did not originally allocate or request. So I did talk to Mr. Young during a conversation and shared with him what we would like to do. However, he did tell me Head Start is now in the process of funding programs whose fiscal year might end in October 31st because they're thinking there might be a government shutdown. So as a result, that's what their priority is. However, he has put it on his radar. So first we have to go to Head Start to request that, and then we come to the board, and then we come to Policy Council.
Thank you, and I apologize. It sort of articulates that right there in the next steps. If approved, I apologize. So thank you very much for that. So, all very important questions. We are at the open and approved portion, so if there's nothing else, we can call for the vote. Unless there's unready.
How soon are we looking to start this work?
The RFP went out for this work, and it's my understanding that we are looking to get underway by the end of September. Is that accurate? The bids are coming in next week?
Yeah, bids are due September 24th, so.
Is there a timeline for all of that RFP as well as doing the work?
Well, the district has requested, again, during non-instructional time, so we're going to vet that out with the vendor once they're on board, whoever that may be.
I mean, just high level. How long do you think it could take?
Having it complete?
Probably 6 to 8 weeks, just
after the
anticipating. Yes.
Okay.
And accounting for daylight savings time or whatever that is, losing
like
daylight
November.
earlier and earlier.
The RFP indicated that they would work all day Friday, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday. So.
All righty, if nothing further, let's call for the roll call vote.
Trustee Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Poole?
Yes.
Trustee Hicks?
Yes.
Trustee Joyce?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
My vote will be yes. However, I'm asking that we remain updated on the approval process with Head Start in terms of assisting with with covering the cost.
Absolutely, and it's also important to note that if we are unable to receive the coverage, that it is part of the sinking fund proposal.
Which is why we say not to exceed the sinking fund.
Yes.
Good. Is it unanimous? Thank you. A motion to open and approve Report 5729, Bussey Salary Scale, correction to Report Number 5720 from the August 10th, 2018 Board meeting. A motion to open and approve that matter would be great.
So move. Support.
Love it.
Thank you. That was priceless.
Thank you.
We've had discussion, if you wouldn't
Yes.
mind, just.
Yes, we've had some discussion regarding this. The one that was presented, 5720 on August 10th, did not include the cost of living and some other pieces, and there was some discrepancy with the numbers between the respective departments. Head Start, of course, has a lot of controls in place, and we wanted to ensure complete compliance. Thereby, we had the Human Resources Department, the Director of Head Start, the Finance Department, and the Grants Department come together and ensure that they were all in agreement with the figures and all signed off on it. So we're confident moving forward.
Any further discussion? If not, Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Trustee Hicks.
Yes.
Trustee Poole.
Yes.
Trustee Rice.
Yes.
Trustee Joyce.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Unanimous.
I move that we open and approve Report 5730, Foster Grandparent Program Memorandum of Understanding.
Support.
Moved and supported. A little bit of discussion just for the availability of information for our community as well.
Yes, Ms. Hill, did you want to come up and address your foster, or just stand and address your foster grandparents? I'm excited for them to return back to the district. So we'll
Yes,
provide you
please.
with that. Perfect.
Sounds on.
It is.
Good evening. Oh, might turn it off.
I have a good loud voice.
It's for the viewing audience.
Good evening,
Good evening.
community and superintendent board. We have had a long-standing relationship with Oakland County Foster Grandparent Program, and so they want to continue that partnership with BUSSY. And so we have to enter into a memorandum of understanding. It is of no cost to the district, to the program. We just have to provide meals as in-kind. In addition to them supporting us, they also supported the district over the summer, and it would love to expand in supporting additional services during the year. So I think it would be a wonderful idea for us to enter into this memorandum of understanding with the foster grandparents once again this year, and continuing. I think it lasts about 3 years.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion on this?
No, this is a program I'm familiar with, and I'm excited about it as well. I do like this program. I think that the kids get a lot out of having having our elders in the building, being able to form those relationships, and I think it is a reciprocal relationship because they get a lot out of being able to be there and be with the youngsters and engage with them. And the support, of course, that they provide our teaching staff is also well needed and appreciated. So I'm excited about this program as well.
And just looking at the template, and I don't know if it's because it's a memorandum of understanding, but a line on there of fiscal fund impact being 0 or something like that, to have it in writing. That way, folks who may didn't hear the conversation or hear Ms. Hill's report will know. But I'm comfortable voting regardless of that.
Just have one. Just not having any familiarity with the program. It kind of talks about working with the special need kids. Is there other special need Southfield Public School resources with them as well, or
With the foster grandparents?
and the children?
Not to my knowledge.
When it speaks on special need, it's not necessarily a child who has an individual education plan.
It's a child who would benefit most from additional support.
Right.
Based on, it might be a child, we had a child last year that went through 4 transitions of families.
Oh, my.
So as a result, she kind of worked with him, and kind of read stories to him and things like that. So it's not a child necessarily that has been identified with an individual education plan, but one who might benefit from additional support based on risk factors.
Okay. Thank you for that.
And I think it's also important to note, and please feel free to jump in, that although they're volunteering with us, they receive some form of a stipend through the agency that they're brought in through, who manages that background check. I know we talk about the safety and security of our kids and making sure that they're in safe hands. So there are measures in place that they go through a background check before they're in the buildings and placement, and then there's that management as it would be with the staff in terms of just making sure the appropriateness and working with the manager that brings them in and places them to make sure that their placement continues to be a healthy and a positive one.
Absolutely. They also receive professional learning opportunities prior to working with our early learners.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good question, thank you.
I believe that takes us, have we voted yet on this? No. We're good. Call the vote.
Yes, let's call for the vote, please. Thank you.
Trustee Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Paul?
Point of order.
Yes.
Trustee Hicks is out there.
Oh, did we went to the restaurant?
I think we can still move on.
Okay. Yes.
Myself, yes. Trustee Joyce?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
He excused himself. Unanimous.
Thank you. Item 5731, a motion to open or approve that interagency agreement disability service plan.
And just as a little background,
I don't know if I got the motion yet.
I'm sorry.
Did we
Did you not?
Not yet.
Oh,
Okay.
So moved.
Thank you.
Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce. Carry on.
Okay, my apologies.
Okay.
This is an agreement required between Head Start and between the LEA and IDEA to ensure that when students are identified with special needs, that the process for referrals, evaluations, et cetera, is handled expeditiously and that students are able to participate in a least restrictive environment.
Sounds appropriate.
Any questions or discussion on that?
And again, this is specific to our early learners with the Head Start program. This is a requirement.
Very good.
So hearing none, let's call for the vote.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Trustee Joyce?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Trustee Paul?
Yes.
Trustee Rice?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Item 5732, Graduation Alliance, Inc. I'd like to ask for a motion to open and approve.
So moved.
Is there support? Item
Support.
5732, thank you. And as I turn through these fussy materials, Madam Superintendent, please forgive me. If you would kindly just highlight the takeaways.
Yes, this is a program that has been in place for a couple of years, and I'm not sure that it came to the board for approval in the past, so I wanted to make sure that it did get before you this year. We use this with some of our students that have been referred to Southfield Regional Academy for additional support, particularly those that need homebound support due to extenuating circumstances. What's important to note is that it's the amount per student per month. However, if a student drops out, we are no longer responsible for making those payments. Or if a student joins us at the end of the year due to those circumstances, we are only responsible for the remaining months in that academic school year. So it's very individualized. We do have a few students that were in need of this support over the summer due to their circumstances, and we want to move forward with providing them that homebound support. We do not have an individual going out to their home. The Graduation Alliance staff works with them both remotely as well as provides any additional support if they have to come in for the classes.
Well, please.
So what if they fall in the category of homeless?
If they fall under McKinney-Vento, we provide the additional supports under McKinney-Vento.
Okay.
This is separate and apart from McKinney-Vento.
And we get reimbursed by the state?
We receive our full allotment as long as we can prove that they took the courses.
Okay.
We have to prove two-way communication with forward progress. Very well versed in that piece. Yes.
Dr. Green, it says it's recommended by the Chief Academic Officer.
Yeah.
Is this something that you support as well?
Absolutely.
Excuse me.
One of the things that I want to do this year that was not in place last year was also monitor the progress of these students participating in Graduation Alliance, and then look at their achievement scores on the SAT when they get to that point as well, to ensure that it's perfectly aligned with college and career readiness.
The per student per month not to exceed portion, is that and I apologize if it was already asked and answered, but is it a lump sum? Is it a monthly?
It is based on quarters, based on the number of students that we have there. So we receive the updates monthly as to who is participating and who is not, and Mr. Eason has access to go in and review the progress of the students along the way. Okay. And at the end of the quarter, we receive a bill for the courses taken during that quarter.
Okay. And no, we have not been privy to this report in the past, so thank you very much for that. Mrs. Rice?
I was going to, when I give my vote, give a caveat, but I can put my ask in before the vote, since it's this discussion. My ask would be that as we have our annual calendar, this is the start of the school semester, our very first school board meeting. With our annual calendar, we have our program evaluation reports on there, and that this be one. Last school semester, we had a pilot program over at SRAC, and I intimately wanted to understand and monitor that to see how did it impact the students as well as the parents there, because it was for both of them. Right. And I really just couldn't get a feel of if that program was effective there at the school. So adding it to our annual calendar for our report, the evaluation of that program would be most effective.
Mm-hmm. Do you recall the name of the program? From
I don't, but it was a lady.
It was $10,000, yes.
I will follow up with Mr. Eason.
Mm-hmm. And it was for them, a subset group of students. Yes, I believe, to get specialized services, yeah.
Thank you.
Hearing no further discussion, Madam Secretary, would you call for the vote?
Trustee Rice?
Yes, with my rationale.
Trustee Poole?
Yes.
Trustee Hicks?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Trustee Joyce?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Report 5733 is at the advanced ed portion, and if I could get a motion to open and approve that.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Dr. Martin Green.
Yes, after becoming accredited in the fall of 2015, there are annual fees associated with advanced ed and continued accreditation, to include them coming out and monitoring our progress along the way, tools to effectively allow us to survey our community and gather perception data, as well as analyze our performance in terms of achievement data as well. So all of those tools are included in that cost. It's $900 per building. They also provide a lot of professional learning materials for our staff to use by way of electronic magazines.
Any further discussion or questions on this portion? Seems pretty cut and dry. Hearing nothing, Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Trustee Joyce?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Trustee Hicks? Trustee Poole?
Yes.
Trustee Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Hicks?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Unanimous? Thank you. That takes us to item 5734, a motion to open and approve the International Baccalaureate report.
So moved.
Support.
Doc?
As you heard earlier, we have the early years program and middle years program, or primary years program at Thompson K-8, and these are the fees associated with the International Baccalaureate. I know that this has been approved in the past, but once again, I'm not sure if this came before you in terms of their bill, so I wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to see this, and having heard from some of our community stakeholders this evening, we will ensure that all pieces relative to the IB program are in place at Thompson for our students to take full advantage of the IB program.
This report also says Chief Academic Officer.
Yes, for full transparency, they are that department is trying to ensure that they are making sure that you know that it came from them. However, it will stay the superintendent moving forward because I do fully support the IB
We
program.
want to make sure you're behind.
Yes, but they are not trying to present any fraudulent documentation, so they made sure that it said that. I am behind it.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Joyce.
I don't know, and it's not relevant so much right now, but certainly Kate could take a peek, but I really remembered that price. I thought was a lot higher in years past. Perhaps I'm thinking of.
That may be the high school program that you're recalling as well. So this
Okay.
is just for Thompson.
Okay.
For the K-8 program.
All right. Anything further, board? If not, let's call for the vote, please, Madam Secretary.
Trustee Poole?
Yes.
Trustee Hicks?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Trustee Joyce?
Yes.
Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Item 5735, the roofing specification for Bussey Early Childhood Center. A motion to open and approve this.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you.
Do we need additional?
Alright. I guess I would like to know, how is this different? Why are the costs broken out separately?
This is based on hiring the company that actually comes out and does the specifications for the roof, for the bid. Also able to do the quality control services, and both of these gentlemen are here to go in depth more about what the company, which is Roofing Technology Associates, do in the process. I'll turn it over to Larry.
Like Scott mentioned, they are doing the actual design of the roof, and they are that third party I mentioned that, if extra costs or things of that nature come up, they are the ones who sort of validate that and, would be our source of reference to make sure that that's a legitimate cost. That is by state law. We as the construction manager can't design and manage a construction project that we are overseeing. So that's actually a requirement by law to have a third party like this. In most traditional cases, it would be an architect or an engineer. Since it's a roofing specialist, that's who is brought on board.
Okay, so I just want to understand that this is a separate cost in addition to.
Yes.
And it says capital projects fund and Head Start. Does the same thing apply as was stated by Ms. Hill as it relates to utilizing Head Start funds and capital projects? Are we referring to the sinking fund?
Absolutely.
I have a question. So have we done an RFP on the company yet? Do we know who that company is, or we haven't done that yet?
It's a professional service for the design of the project itself. That was competitively requested of a couple designers provide prices for those. RTA was the most competitive one and the only one that expressed interest in doing it in the time frame that we had requested with the tight time constraints of the construction time frame and try and get it in this year. They were the only ones that responded.
So I have another question. Given that the law requires that there's a third-party manager, how are we making sure that there are no overlaps in, say, these companies or these individuals that are working on both ends? How are we ensuring that that isn't happening?
What we do is we provide a plan of how our staff will be, or be referenced and provide services for the district. Then what we do is we make sure that this is our staff plan, this is their staff plan, to make sure that there's total coverage for the application in this instance. So where our services stopped on this one, they picked up. What we would typically do as your construction manager is be that buffer between the designer and the actual construction and the contractors. This one is a little bit more unique, so we're allowing them the opportunity to be able to be the ones that are certifying and making sure that the product is being applied in an appropriate manner, because they are the ones that certify that application at the end for your warranty process for the manufacturer of the roof or the supplier of the roofing materials. So essentially, we make sure that it's adequately, and pardon the pun on the roof being covered, it's covered appropriately to make sure that it meets all the requirements for the manufacturer, the warranty, and what the specifications are being generated.
So just to piggyback, as I looked at the next report, The the fiscal fund impact was listed as sinking fund, whereas this one is listed as capital projects fund. Just for consistency, I like either one of them revised. And I also would like to get a running tally of monies exhausted against the sinking fund to know, what we spent thus far, what's left.
And this is the first expense.
Yeah.
Trustee Hicks, the Bussey project is the capital projects carryover, but the Thompson-Vandenberg is the sinking fund.
Is sinking fund. Okay.
Yes.
So that's the carryover.
That's the carryover, yes.
Okay.
So back on the other item, when we moved to 750, I think that needs
Yes.
correction.
The correction also has to be from the other increase.
Okay.
That is also
Capital
capital.
projects.
Correct. That was a carryover from last year.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Trustee Rice?
So, point of order, do we need to amend our motion for that report? I see Dr. Green shaking her head.
That's fine. Do you probably have record of who opened and approved?
That's the one I was confused on, remember? Not confused, but I heard the number, I should say.
Hicks, if you would amend your motion.
I respectfully amend 5728 to address the correction noted by Trustee Rice.
Support for that?
Support.
Great. Ready for the vote?
And we're voting on the amend, or we're voting on the 5735?
Let's tackle 57, I'm sorry.
No. We actually are out of order.
Yeah.
So we actually need to address the current one because it's a motion on the floor.
Correct.
Then we'll go back to 28.
Yes, so 5735, all ready for the vote? Let's go ahead and vote on that.
Trustee Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Poole?
Yes.
Trustee Hicks?
Yes.
I'm saying yes, again, with the same, the same ask regarding who's paying for what Head Start will approve, and so forth. Trustee Joyce?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Thank you.
And now I would like to go back and open Report 5728, amend and approve based on the recommendations of Trustee Rice.
Support.
Move and support it. Ready when you are, Madam Secretary.
Trustee Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Poole?
Yes.
Trustee Hicks?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Trustee Joyce?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Thank you. The next item is Report 5736. If I could get a motion to open and approve that.
So moved.
Support.
And that is the roofing spec for Thompson and Vandenberg. Mirrors the last instance of them being up. Certainly welcome to any questions from the board.
Well, it doesn't mirror because the scope of work is less for this one than the other one.
Okay.
33 versus 68.
Yeah. Because they won't be doing the roof evaluation. What was the rationale? Well, I'm sorry, we are open. Why aren't we doing the roof evaluation? Because we already did one? Because when I look at the Bussey one, it says roof evaluation, remedial specifications, and quality control. The other just doesn't have the roof evaluation. Did we already do that for those buildings?
We did.
Okay.
I believe those were the photos that were distributed at our.
Prior.
last-
Yeah, okay.
You can tell that the price obviously is for two buildings.
Yes.
Yep.
Anything further? Madam Secretary, the vote, please.
Trustee Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Poole?
Yes.
Trustee Hicks?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Trustee Joyce?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Unanimous?
I might be overlooking it, but we do have two more action items. Report 5670 is the security cameras change order. A motion to open and approve that.
Do we have that?
Oh.
No?
No?
That your script may be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Information,
That's good.
information items.
Excellent. Let's, information items is next. And as you can see there on the agenda, the purchasing report, page 28. These items are for information and below the threshold in general of our $5,000.
Above the threshold.
Oh.
They are above the threshold and should have come before you for a vote prior to the purchase. Once we were made privy to this information, we are bringing it to your attention and putting internal controls in place to ensure that this does not occur moving forward.
Correct. All right, for your information. The next for your information item is, oh, please, go ahead.
So what you're saying, Dr. Green, is that you're gonna make sure this doesn't happen again, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
'Cause I'm just surprised that it happened.
Wait,
No, I
This
pointed
one
that,
I
I pointed
recall.
that out several months
You
ago.
did, yeah, okay, you did. Yeah. Yes, you should.
Remember?
Yes, I do.
And I will state that for one of these, for example, the playground mulch to 7 schools,
Uh-huh.
there was a perception that, given that it was 7 schools, each school,
Right.
their cost was less than 5,000.
Right.
My request was, combined, it's over 5,000, so we need to bring it to your attention and bring it to you for approval. So individuals were looking at these pieces in isolation and not in totality.
Everything.
Right. So
Right.
we're trying to bring everyone back to policy.
I guess I have a question about the frontline technologies, because I do recall this coming before the board. I don't know if it was this specific software, but there were quite a few frontline technologies that were approved, especially during these months. And I'm remembering so vividly because those were the months of transition where I was taking the minutes. I was on double duty, taking both the minutes as well as managing our voting record.
Yeah.
And so that one I do remember very specifically because I was asked to produce those minutes again so that finance could handle it. So I want to make sure that that is on record, that that one was.
You're absolutely right.
I believe that this was an additional piece.
This one
I
module.
remember this as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
because
may, okay.
because
There may have been a
that was the
cross
one
between the
module,
transition.
and we wanted to,
But I thought it was from one module that was approved, and then this was the additional cost of the second module.
Well, we had
Get the best cost for it, because with the absence management report as well as,
The application process.
Right, it was, yeah, that specific meeting, what occurred was, we had one action item and we had one information item. After hearing more information about the information item, we decided to move that information item to an action item. So maybe there wasn't an actual action report for it, but we did approve it as such.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
There was on June 12th, 5671, Frontline Tech, ASOP, absence management.
That's good to know.
All right. Second item under the information items is the Bussey roof construction timeline for your perusal at your leisure. Oh,
I can go through it, or
thank you very much. Unless someone, okay. That takes us to the third item under information items. That's the bill disbursement report. And in lieu of it on the screen, we expended in total payroll for the dates listed, June 22nd through August 31st, $8,954,026.84. Feel like I'm not saying that right. And then in terms of accounts payable, $7,617,026 with 93 cents. And then our total payments of bills total 5.9 million for a total disbursements for that period of time, which I stated June 22nd through the 31st of August, $22,531,175.91. That then concludes the action items and information items, and we are right at public participation. If I have any additional cards, take those at this time. Thank you. If you wish to address the board regarding a school-related issue that has not yet been resolved by the school administrator, please submit a comment card immediately. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. As a matter of fairness, speakers with complaints against individuals are asked not to mention any one person by name. Complaints concerning employees pursuant to Board Policy 9130 should be brought to the attention of school principals or administrators before coming to the board. Your cooperation is appreciated. It's Sonia Basson, and
I'm at Levy Middle School.
You're at Levy Middle School. Thank you very much.
Keys. We have been told that we can't get keys. Can't get keys because we don't have a master plumber. We're sharing keys in many parts of our building. How do we bypass this? Can we make an arrangement with a local keysmith? What are they called? Locksmith. So we can get keys made. This was all last year. We had put in a request. They said, well, you don't have a master plumber. He's the only one in the district who can cut keys. So if we could somehow get keys made, our current VP was at the high school and had to go through 2 other doors to get to his office because he couldn't get a key. So keys would be really helpful. Also, yes, the temperature outside is very nice. Our building is still hot and stuffy. You know, there's a couple of things we could do. We could turn off air conditioning in all the other buildings, and then you guys could see what we feel like. I walk in the morning, my classroom is 85. Today, it was 85. By the end of the day, it's 98. It's very difficult for the kids to stay together. There are solutions out there. I think that the district needs to do this because this is Michigan. It's going to get really hot next week, and it's going to get hot in October. Then it'll cool down a bit, and then we're back to April, May, and June, and it's stifling. And I don't know how you want us to keep the kids cool, keep us cool. I don't see anybody else who doesn't want to work in a cool location, and we need to address it in most of our buildings.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For the continuity of everything, I just want to reiterate. Mr. Joyce, you can help me.
Okay.
Apologize for the delay. I basically just want to state that if your concern is of an emergent issue, to those folks who spoke today, certainly don't hesitate to reach out to 248-746-4366 in regards to our board executive assistant who can follow up and provide some timely response, and then through the superintendent, of course. So I just want to make sure that it was relayed that there will be accurate responses provided. For the good and the order, folks. I'll start with Trustee Rice.
I did want to start by thanking one of the community members for bringing the scholarships through the Southfield Public School Foundation, or the foundation, to us, and I'm happy to hear that we will have some students that will be applying for those scholarships. I also wanted to thank Dr. Green for the legislative update. Advocacy is one of the things that we kind of, I won't say it's weaknesses, but something that is an opportunity for us to improve on. So I really appreciated the update today. One of the third things is in your folders, you guys have a personnel action report with a recommended update on there. There's 2 columns, and I'd like to know if the board has the pleasure of either or. One is the certification date, and another one is check the box, yeah, we've met this criteria. So really would like to know if it's something that the board would like to see, and when we get our personnel action reports. I'll pause there before I continue on.
Any thoughts on those ideas? If you're looking at the
I
example.
think it's in your folder, on
Yeah.
the left-hand side. No?
It's there.
I know what you're talking about.
Everyone has it.
I wrote
Yeah.
it.
You received
It's on the
this,
back.
how did you arrive with this? Did
Yep.
you-
Um,
The district, how did you, just one more insight.
It's not through the district. It's really a want of having that information to be able to make that decision. In the past, I'm sure all of our board members are aware of us making decisions and not having that information. So this is a way of knowing that, yeah, we either know the expiration date, or if we don't really care about the expiration date, yeah, check the box when we see these type of items on the personnel action report. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something that, it could be, part of the report that the board receives.
I think if we're going to have certification dates, it needs to be the expiration date, because that's the most meaningful to us. That tells us that they, in fact, they have the certification, but then we know if there's some type of measures that need to start,
Coming up,
put in
or-
place,
Mhm.
to make sure that that person stays certified and current.
I wouldn't be looking for that. I would be looking at Dr. Green to have that ownership and accountability. It's just when I'm looking at the report and I need to approve, I have some assurance or some background information to say, yep, I'm okay with this decision.
I'd like to chime in. I definitely feel that, I want to say it right, that some of our thinking sometimes feels like the trying to fix previous problems that I'm not certain are going to still be here. At the most, I think I would be okay with the certification checkbox, but my thinking is, and unfortunately I've laid the onus on previous superintendents before, but I'd like that onus to be on them, that if it's even on that personnel report, that they've already vetted, and if I'm not mistaken, there are some legalities too. But that's just my take, is that at the most, I think the checkbox, but certainly my expectation is that the superintendent isn't bringing those folks to us without that credential. Mr. Joyce?
I like the fact that we should have that information. That way, I'm assured that honesty and transparency is there, not trying to point a finger at anyone at all, but just that my questions are answered right off the bat, so that when I look at it, I can approve it and know that we're moving in the right direction. It's not about adding more to the plate. It's just having that information and being assured, from my standpoint, that everything is being done correctly. That's how I look at it. So I think it should be on the report.
Others?
Well, we know the position of the current superintendent and what she feels, or how she feels the people in those positions, they should be certified. So I trust her, but when she moves on to become the state superintendent or national superintendent, the next person in place, I want them to have a process that they need to follow. So I think setting that process now helps the next superintendent.
Thank you, that's helpful. Mr. Poole, any?
No, I've never liked being in a position to somewhat micromanage the superintendent. I like the superintendent to have free reign with how she wants to run things, or he wants to run things. And if I have an issue with it, I'll bring it up in private.
Madam President, may I also share with all of the trustees that most recently, we have put some plans in place. I was very concerned about certifications, as I've shared with each of you individually and stated publicly. Not having certified personnel in key positions will cause a financial hardship to the district, as we would be responsible for returning their salaries and benefits to the state of Michigan. As a result, I've personally been scrubbing all of the employment data to ensure that our staff is appropriately certified in the areas in which they're teaching. This evening's personnel report was verified by 2 individuals in terms of the lookup. Until we get the master file in place with each staff member, their certification credentials, the expiration dates, and then a system in place whereby the February or the December of the year prior to the expiration, they receive a notice that says your certificate is expiring in June 30th. That would afford them an opportunity to take a class in January if they need to take a class for that certificate renewal. Then in February, they get another notification. You have 4 months, then the countdown to ensure that we've done our due diligence in terms of notifying our team. And then by June 30th, they will know what the final consequence is. And if there have been no prior arrangements made for that individual, then unfortunately, we would have to recommend a placement change for that individual.
I like that.
So, meeting in the middle. I think Charles's point was the one that got it for me, which was about future soups. So, would there be any opposition for a checkbox? Do you feel it's necessary, Ms. Smith, for the date? Or we could just hold the superintendent accountable that that box was checked, therefore you are stamping that this is good to go, just in terms of everyone at the table?
I have no preference. I would just say that if there's going to be a date, I would prefer the expiration date versus the date of issue.
Yeah, because it serves the same purpose. If there's no expiration date, not certified.
Absolutely,
Right.
yeah.
But then also, it's the type of certification.
Yeah.
So that could be another layer. One can hold a certification in math and be hired for English, so the
That's
checks
true.
and balance has to come back to that of the superintendent.
Yeah.
Verification.
I'm okay with the checkbox with the ownership, with the superintendent that's going to be monitoring and putting in this systematic process for monitoring that and ensuring that folks have an opportunity to get their renewal at an adequate time or what have you, and if not, that the board is notified so that we know how to make decisions.
And in December of every year, you will get a list of those that have been put on notice regarding their certifications expiring in June of the next year. It will become a part of the process again as we implement the blueprint framework, all of these systems being put into place.
And I'll remind the board that as we were talking about prior to, we were talking about the technology, what was it? The ASAP systems. One of those systems, and correct me if I'm wrong, we talked about the staff, primarily the teachers, being able to run off a transcript and a way to really manage those hours, those professional development hours that oftentimes that do have to be uploaded to the state. The Talent Ed system, which was one of the systems that one of the HR things that we approved during those summer months as well. So I think we have all the right resources. I think, coupled with what you mentioned about those processes, I feel very confident. And just as you came in with the charge of looking after those certifications and making it known, hey, this is the law, and I'm not putting my certification at risk, because of this. So, again, I'm feeling confident. I'm just stating in terms of just if we are going to receive additional information, the type of information that I would like to have.
Very good. Ms. Rice, anything further?
Just one last thing. I would like to formally send my condolences to Trustee Robinson's family, and hopefully that she has safe travels there and back as well.
Definitely. Thank you. Mr. Poole?
Yeah, I echo the same sentiments with Trustee Rice as it relates to Trustee Betty Robinson. Hope things work out well for her and her family. Dr. Green, you mentioned Big Green, Community Learning Gardens. I think I may have a college career pathway for your community. Okay. I've worked with a couple, developed a program with the community college, which articulates directly to Michigan State. And they
You like that, Trustee Hicks?
They liked it so well that they built a $35 million program in our community, which I'll be more than happy to point you in that direction.
Please.
It's a, on the community college level, it's an associate's degree / certificate in crop management. Certificate, associate's degree in landscape management. And they both articulate to the School of Agriculture at the Michigan State University. And they have those flavors as well, but as it relates to agriculture, Michigan State kind of owns that space.
They do.
So I'll be more than happy to point you in that
That's
direction.
fact. Thank you.
Now, the other piece is the, for probably the parents that have seen the brighter days in education, there is a Master Gardeners program that Michigan State University has to offer as well. I'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction or work with you to bring those pathways to our students here in
Please.
Southfield. Okay?
Thank you.
That's it.
All right. The resident Wolverine.
Go blue. Nothing for me.
Something.
Yeah, just a couple things for me.
Yes.
Just always want to kick off the year talking about the same thing I've been talking about for 4 years now.
Oh, no.
Pathways.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Pathways for potential. Wraparound services for our kids, for our families. I've been promised so many times. I'm just going to ask again. I might ask again if I have to, but I'm going to keep asking as I've been asking, that we look into it. It's free. DHS offers this program or these services. All they need is an office to set up and interface and connect with our families. And they're right on site. So I'm going to put that out there again. Champions, as I've also been mentioning before, just making sure that our families are aware of the scholarship opportunities, talking with the principals if that is a need that they have, and then also keeping in communication with the area director or regional manager, I'm not sure of her exact title, when we do have closing days, because Champion does require families to pay a week in advance, so making sure that families are in communication, because they have promised us that they will work with our families and that they will do all of the accounting and reimbursements. However, families need to understand that it's not going to happen automatically. You have to reach out to them because all of their systems kind of come from their headquarters. The area manager has kind of that leeway to then send on the communication to get individual situations worked out. So I want to make sure that their families are aware of that and keeping up on that, because those $10 add up. And we don't want to, donate money to this for-profit. I use them, so I know a couple other people who use them. So we want to make sure that we're that our families are getting what they need. Also, the academies, and I've mentioned it to you before. We've had conversation, Dr. Green, but I just want to make note that we have great academies over at Southfield A&T. So I think that, we are in a space where we have corporations and businesses in the community that want to partner with us, making sure that those kids are getting out of those programs and those academies with something tangible, something that they can transfer into, work experience, even at the entry level, and, help guide them along their college and career path. And then also community service. This is something that I recall has come up a couple times over the years, and it kind of came up as a topic and kind of left, and I recall it coming up again, and just wanting to know. I know that specifically the city of Southfield and the city of Lathrop Village have offered to allow our kids to come in and do like internships and different things like that to get those community service hours. I've always been an advocate of that. In fact, of community service hours being a requirement of graduation. I'm not sure in terms of the history of this district, how that came and then left. I would just be interested in knowing more about that, what other districts are doing, and so forth around that. So, because I think it would be a benefit to our students to have that experience. And, okay, I think that's all I have.
Alrighty. Before I go to Mr. Joyce, Mr. Hicks?
Yeah, I did want to have one thank you. One of the things that I've been asking for was the ability to pay for cafeteria bills online. To me, we finally got that. What I hated doing was sending money with my younger children. Now that we can go online through MyStar and pay those bills is a big plus for me. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did we send a communication out?
Nope.
It's on Facebook. That was my other.
Oh, okay, because I would have loved to know that, because my son just lost $20.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's why I came, that's why I make sure parents knew that.
Well, kudos to our public
Yep.
relations because they've been really on top of getting the messages out on Facebook and social media. So just making sure that was something that I recently shared. So
Yeah.
yeah, we want to make sure families know that.
Yes.
Since we're on the subject of food for the children in the cafeterias, there's several
Adler?
students, no, not Adler.
Okay.
Oh, no. Everything's not Adler. I'm at Bussy and Vandenberg and
Tell Alma Dean that.
You guys don't know, I'm retired, I can go to all of them, okay? At A&T, I've had several students that complain to me that the meals that I serve there, they're being served like they're kindergartners. The portions are small. And they said that by the time school ends, they're hungry again and so I do have some photographs of some of the portions. The portions are much less than the portions that were served to the high school students from last year. So we might have to look into that, to make sure that our students are being fed where they, so that when my daughter comes home, she's not coming home eating like she hasn't had nothing all day. Because that's what's happening. And so because of that, I look further and more students started approaching me saying, we're not being fed enough. Our portions are small. So we need to look into that.
My board matter, or for the good of the order, is just simply, since our last televised meeting, there's been a lot of publicity about LeBron James's school, his promised school. Okay. And I always feel just a tinge of haterade, only because I know that we've got great things going on in Southfield Public Schools, technology-wise, just a myriad of wonderful things happening. However, I do applaud and wanted to go on record and commend Mr. James, LeBron James, for that, because not only did he create a learning institution, as much as folks want to compare him to this person and that person, he didn't go around the public, his local Canton public schools. He partnered with his school, with that school district, as opposed to what I like to refer to as siphoning funds away from districts that need it. So just, kudos to that in the sense of public education and how, we are at the ground level of what's important for our families and our communities. So, but like I said, Southfield Public Schools got some great stuff, and we may not have a LeBron James in our midst, however, yet, or maybe we do, but I'm just grateful for our district and all the things we have to offer. With that, we have future meetings scheduled Tuesday, September 25th, 2018, special board meeting. Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018 is very important. It's our fall count day. And Monday, October 8th, the joint roundtable meeting with the city councils. Tuesday, October 9th, 2018, regular board meeting. With that, this meeting is adjourned.
President,
Before adjournment.
I did want to remind the trustees, and I did send you an email, that I will be at the Mesa Conference for a few days next week. I will, based on the recommendations from Plant Moran, fill out that report and make sure that you have that in your email. And also, just not to directly respond to the concerns, but all that you lifted to me prior to tonight, I have addressed, including the portion size of the food and the partnership council. I did want to lift that in conversation because that was a big concern of our community. So the partnership council 2.0 version is back online, and Mr. Dignan, that is happening on the 28th?
September 20th.
Okay. Okay, and so we are getting our academies back up and running, and a lot of the things that you lifted in conversation are fully underway, and there will be a full report on those things at the study session.
And the screens, that was something else, just in terms, at one of the buildings,
The window screens?
Oh, the window screens, yes, yes.
I do want to adjourn, but I also want to welcome Laura Norris to the table. Thank you for everything you've done and will be doing, and welcome to our fold. With that, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.